What if an entire civilization emerged from the shadows of history, transforming from wandering herders into one of the most powerful empires the ancient world had ever seen? Deep within the rugged peaks of the Zagros Mountains, a remarkable transformation was taking place that would reshape the destiny of the Middle East forever. Around 1500 BC, something extraordinary began unfolding across the Iranian plateau. Massive waves of nomadic tribes, speaking languages that would eventually evolve into Persian and related tongues, started their epic journey southward from the vast steppes of Central Asia. These weren't conquering armies sweeping across the landscape in a single devastating campaign. Instead, this represented one of history's most gradual yet profound migrations, stretching across multiple centuries as diverse groups of herders, warriors, and their families sought new territories to call home. The Zagros Mountains became their ultimate destination, and for good reason. This dramatic landscape, with its towering peaks reaching toward the heavens and hidden valleys sheltering ancient secrets, offered everything these nomadic peoples needed to thrive. The existing inhabitants had lived in these mountains for thousands of years, cultivating their fields and tending their settlements in relative isolation. Yet as the Iranian-speaking newcomers filtered into the region, something unprecedented began occurring. Rather than violent displacement, a complex process of cultural fusion emerged. The incoming pastoralists brought with them revolutionary practices perfected during generations of movement across the endless grasslands of Central Asia. Their expertise in horse breeding, metalworking, and mobile warfare complemented the agricultural knowledge and settled lifestyle of the mountain dwellers. This wasn't simply one group replacing another, it represented the birth of an entirely new civilization. These Iranian migrants carried their entire world with them as they traveled. Their portable bronze implements gleamed in the mountain sunlight, crafted with techniques unknown to the existing populations. Their pottery bore distinctive geometric patterns that told stories of distant homelands, featuring intricate triangular designs and cross-hatched motifs painted in bold reds and blacks against buff-colored clay backgrounds. Every vessel, every tool, every weapon spoke of a culture adapted to constant movement yet sophisticated in its artistry. The newcomers' relationship with horses set them apart from any previous inhabitants of the Zagros region. These weren't merely beasts of burden or sources of meat. They represented the foundation of an entirely different way of life. The Iranian tribes had developed an almost mystical connection with these magnificent animals, using them for transportation, warfare, and as symbols of social status. Archaeological discoveries reveal elaborate horse burials alongside human remains, indicating the sacred role these creatures played in their society. As these pastoral nomads established themselves throughout the mountain ranges, they faced the challenge of adapting their mobile lifestyle to a more settled existence. The Zagros Mountains presented both opportunities and obstacles. The complex topography created numerous microclimates, allowing herders to practice sophisticated seasonal migration patterns. During the warm months, they would drive their livestock to lush, high-altitude pastures where the animals could feast on mountain grasses. As winter approached, the herders descended to protected valley floors where their animals could find shelter from the harsh mountain weather. This seasonal rhythm became the heartbeat of early Median society. Their temporary summer camps consisted of portable felt tents that could be assembled quickly and moved as grazing conditions required. These high-altitude settlements, often established above 2,000 meters, required remarkable adaptation skills and intimate knowledge of mountain weather patterns. The herders developed sophisticated systems for predicting seasonal changes and planning their movements accordingly. Winter settlements told a different story entirely. As the cold months arrived, the nomadic groups established more substantial camps in the lower valleys. These winter quarters gradually evolved from temporary shelters into permanent villages as populations grew and agricultural activities expanded. The archaeological record reveals this transformation occurring most dramatically during the 12th and 11th centuries BC, when simple seasonal camps began developing into complex settlements with storage facilities, workshops, and defensive structures. The material culture of these proto-Median communities reflected their unique position between nomadism and settled life. Bronze remained the primary metal for tools and weapons during the early settlement period, with craftsmen producing increasingly sophisticated implements. Their metalworking techniques had been refined through generations of nomadic life, where portability and durability were essential. Yet, as they established more permanent settlements, their bronze work became more elaborate, incorporating decorative elements that served both practical and ceremonial purposes. The pottery traditions of these Iranian settlers marked a clear departure from earlier inhabitants' ceramic styles. While the local populations had developed their own pottery techniques over millennia, the newcomers introduced entirely different approaches to vessel construction and decoration. Their handmade ceramics featured distinctive geometric patterns that archaeologists can trace back to Central Asian origins. These decorative schemes weren't merely artistic choices, they represented cultural identity markers that connected dispersed tribal groups across vast distances. The economic foundation of these early Median communities rested on a carefully balanced combination of animal husbandry, limited agriculture, and specialized craft production. Cattle provided the primary source of protein and dairy products, while sheep and goats supplied wool, meat, and hides for various purposes. However, horses occupied a special position in their economic and social structure. These animals weren't just livestock, they represented wealth, power, and military capability in ways that fundamentally shaped Median society. Agricultural activities initially played a secondary role in their economy. The Iranian settlers possessed limited experience with farming techniques suitable for the Zagros environment. They focused primarily on cultivating barley and wheat in valley bottoms where water sources allowed for basic irrigation. This agricultural knowledge expanded gradually as they learned from existing populations and adapted their techniques to mounting conditions. The tribal organization of these proto-Median groups reflected patterns common among Indo-European pastoral peoples worldwide. Archaeological evidence suggests communities organized around extended kinship networks that controlled specific territories while participating in larger confederations during times of external threat or seasonal migration. Individual tribes typically established clusters of related settlements within particular valleys or mountain ranges, creating territorial boundaries that would persist for centuries and eventually form the foundation of the Great Median Kingdom that would dominate the ancient Middle East. This remarkable transformation from nomadic herders to settled mountain peoples represents one of history's most successful cultural adaptations, setting the stage for the emergence of one of antiquity's most influential civilizations. The emergence of a distinct Median identity wasn't just about territorial conquest or military prowess, it was fundamentally a story of linguistic and cultural evolution that would create one of the ancient world's most sophisticated civilizations. As these Iranian-speaking tribes settled deeper into the Zagros Mountains, something remarkable was happening to their language, their beliefs, and their entire way of understanding the world around them. The Median tongue developed as part of the vast Iranian branch of the Indo-European language family, yet it carved out its own unique linguistic territory through centuries of mountain isolation and cultural interaction. Unlike their Persian cousins who would later dominate the plateau, the Medes spoke a northwestern Iranian dialect that preserved ancient Indo-European features while simultaneously absorbing vocabulary and grammatical structures from the indigenous populations they encountered in the Zagros region. This linguistic fusion process created something entirely unprecedented in the ancient world. Old Iranian dialects that formed the foundation of classical Median contained archaic Indo-European elements that scholars today recognize as among the most conservative branches of this vast language family. Yet these ancient features existed alongside loanwords borrowed from pre-Iranian languages spoken by mountain peoples who had inhabited the Zagros region for millennia before the Iranian arrival. The scarcity of early written records makes reconstructing the details of Median linguistic development challenging, but the evidence we do possess tells a fascinating story. The language evolved through gradual divergence from common Iranian roots, shaped by substrate influences from non-Iranian languages and the geographic isolation that allowed unique phonological and lexical features to develop without outside interference. This linguistic evolution occurred alongside the development of distinctly Median cultural practices that would set them apart from all other Iranian peoples. Religious beliefs, social customs, and material culture all transformed through complex interactions between inherited Iranian traditions and local influences encountered in their mountain homeland. The result was a unique cultural synthesis that distinguished the Medes from their Persian, Parthian, and Scythian relatives. The geographic isolation provided by the Zagros Mountains proved crucial in this cultural formation process. The complex topography created natural barriers that allowed Median society to develop distinctive characteristics while maintaining essential connections with the broader Iranian cultural sphere. Mountain passes served as filters, allowing selective cultural exchange while protecting core Median traditions from external pressure. Social stratification within Proto-Median society reflected hierarchical patterns typical of Indo-European pastoral peoples, but adapted to their specific mountain environment and emerging political needs. Archaeological evidence reveals the existence of clear social classes based on wealth accumulation, kinship connections, and military achievement. Elite burials containing weapons, elaborate horse gear, and precious objects provide concrete evidence for warrior aristocracies who controlled tribal territories and commanded military expeditions. These elite groups form the foundation for later Median nobility and royal dynasties that would eventually rule vast territories stretching from the Caspian Sea to central Anatolia. The archaeological record shows that these aristocratic families maintained their status through control of horse breeding operations, mastery of metallurgical techniques, and leadership in both warfare and religious ceremonies. Religious practices among early Median populations created syncretic belief systems that combined traditional Iranian elements with local spiritual traditions encountered in the Zagros region. Archaeological evidence includes fire altars, ritual deposits, and ceremonial architecture that suggest the practice of fire worship and other religious ceremonies associated with ancient Iranian spiritual traditions. The construction of specialized religious buildings at sites like Tepe Nushi Jan indicates the increasing importance of organized religious activities in developing Median society. These religious developments would prove crucial in later Median political organization, as spiritual authority became closely linked with temporal power. The combination of Iranian fire worship traditions with local mountain spiritual practices created a uniquely Median religious synthesis that would influence Zoroastrian development and provide ideological foundations for the later Median Empire. The transformation of scattered Iranian settlements into recognizable Median tribal confederations accelerated dramatically during the 9th century BCE, coinciding with aggressive Assyrian expansion westward from Mesopotamia. This external pressure served as a catalyst for internal political development, forcing previously independent tribal groups to coordinate their activities and develop more sophisticated organizational structures. The first documented references to Median peoples appear in Assyrian royal annals from this period, marking the beginning of recorded Median history and their dramatic entry onto the stage of ancient Near Eastern politics. These initial encounters between Assyrian military forces and Median tribal coalitions established patterns of conflict, tribute payment, and diplomatic maneuvering that would define their relationship for the next 2 centuries. Assyrian scribes meticulously documented these interactions in cuneiform tablets that provide our earliest written evidence for Median political organization and territorial boundaries. The Assyrian term Madai first appears in royal inscriptions from the reign of Shalmaneser III, referring to both the people themselves and their mountainous territories in the Zagros region. These records indicate that by the mid-9th century BCE, Median tribes had achieved sufficient political cohesion to engage in formal diplomatic relations with major regional powers. This suggests the emergence of recognized leadership structures, established territorial boundaries, and coordinated decision-making processes among various tribal groups, clear indicators of evolving state formation. Tribute lists preserved in Assyrian archives reveal the material foundations of early Median prosperity and economic organization. Recorded payments included horses, cattle, sheep, precious metals, and textiles, reflecting an economy based on sophisticated animal husbandry practices and specialized craft production. The consistent emphasis on horses in these tribute records underscores their continued central importance in Median culture and demonstrates their exceptional value to Assyrian military forces who recognized the superior quality of Zagros mountain horses for cavalry operations. These tribute relationships, while imposed through military pressure and the constant threat of Assyrian retaliation, also facilitated unprecedented cultural and technological exchange between Mesopotamian and Iranian civilizations. Archaeological evidence from 9th century BCE sites demonstrates increasing sophistication in Median material culture, including distinctive pottery styles, improved metallurgical techniques, and more complex architectural forms that showed clear Mesopotamian influence. Sites throughout the Zagros region display evidence of rapid population growth and settlement consolidation during this period, suggesting that external pressure from Assyrian expansion served as a catalyst for internal political development among Median tribal groups. The necessity of organizing effective military resistance against Assyrian campaigns encouraged the formation of larger political units and more centralized leadership structures that could coordinate resources across multiple tribal territories. The 6 major Median tribes identified in later classical sources had emerged as distinct political entities by the 8th century BCE, each controlling specific territories and developing specialized economic activities that contributed to the confederation's overall strength and stability. The explosive growth of Median civilization during the 8th and 7th centuries BCE transformed scattered mountain tribes into a confederation capable of challenging the mightiest empire of the ancient world. What began as defensive responses to Assyrian aggression evolved into something far more significant: the birth of a military and political powerhouse that would reshape the entire balance of power across the Near East. The agricultural revolution that swept through Median territories during this period created unprecedented prosperity and population growth. Surplus grain production supported growing communities of specialist craftsmen, professional warriors, and administrative officials who formed the backbone of an increasingly sophisticated society. This economic foundation enabled Median tribes to maintain standing armies, construct elaborate fortifications, and engage in the complex diplomatic relationships that characterized major ancient powers. The Busoi controlled crucial territories in the northern Zagros, particularly around the modern Hamadan region, where their settlements commanded strategic mountain passes connecting the Iranian plateau with Mesopotamian territories. Archaeological investigations throughout this region have revealed substantial fortified sites with compelling evidence of metalworking operations, extensive horse breeding facilities, and intensive agricultural production systems that supported dense populations capable of fielding formidable military forces when external threats demanded unified response. The Paratasani dominated the central Zagros mountains, establishing their primary settlements in fertile valleys around modern Kermanshah and Kangavar. This powerful tribe specialized in horse breeding and training operations, developing revolutionary techniques that produced cavalry mounts renowned throughout the ancient world for their speed, endurance, and battlefield effectiveness. Excavations at sites associated with Parataseni settlements have uncovered elaborate horse burials, sophisticated bridles and harness equipment, and specialized training facilities that demonstrate their unparalleled expertise in equestrian arts. Their strategic geographic position allowed the Parataseni to control vital trade routes connecting the Iranian plateau with Mesopotamian markets, providing substantial economic advantages that funded military expansion and sophisticated political development. The wealth generated through horse trading and transit fees enabled this tribe to construct impressive fortifications and maintain professional military units that served as the Confederation's elite cavalry forces. The Strochers inhabited the eastern margins of Median territory, where the Zagros Mountains gradually transitioned into the vast Iranian plateau. This tribe maintained extensive connections with nomadic groups across the plateau, while participating fully in the broader Median Confederation's political and military activities. Their settlements display fascinating evidence of seasonal occupation patterns that reflect continued semi-nomadic practices, with permanent winter quarters established in protected valleys and temporary summer camps constructed in high mountain pastures. The Strochates functioned as crucial intermediaries between fully sedentary Median tribes and nomadic Iranian peoples, facilitating extensive trade networks and cultural exchange across the region. Their unique position enabled them to recruit additional military forces from plateau nomads during periods of external threat, significantly expanding the Confederation's overall military capabilities. The Erazanti controlled extensive territories in the southern Zagros, where they developed sophisticated agricultural systems that supported urban centers of remarkable size and complexity. This industrious tribe pioneered the transition to fully sedentary lifestyles among Median peoples, constructing permanent settlements with substantial architecture and intricate irrigation systems that maximized agricultural productivity in challenging mountain environments. Archaeological evidence from Erazanti territories includes massive storage facilities, specialized workshops for craft production, and administrative buildings that suggest highly advanced political organization. The agricultural surplus generated by Erazanti farming operations supported specialist craftsmen and professional warriors who contributed significantly to the military capabilities of the broader Median Confederation during its confrontations with Assyrian imperial forces. The Budii occupied strategic territories in the western Zagros where they maintained direct contact with advanced Mesopotamian civilizations. This exposure to cutting-edge technologies and administrative practices allowed them to serve as cultural intermediaries who adapted foreign innovations for use within traditional Median society. Budii settlements show clear evidence of writing systems, architectural techniques, and craft traditions borrowed from Mesopotamian sources, but intelligently modified to suit local conditions and cultural preferences. Their role as cultural intermediaries made the Budi extraordinarily influential within Median political councils and absolutely essential for conducting diplomatic relations with external powers. Their expertise in Mesopotamian languages, customs, and political practices enabled the Confederation to engage effectively with Assyrian, Babylonian, and other regional powers on equal terms. The Magi represented a completely unique element within Median tribal structure, functioning as a specialized priestly caste rather than a territorial tribe. This influential group maintained ancient religious traditions and ritual practices that provided essential cultural unity across the diverse Median Confederation. Archaeological evidence suggests that Magi communities established religious centers at strategically important locations throughout Median territory, where they conducted elaborate ceremonies, maintained sacred fires, and provided crucial spiritual guidance to tribal leaders. Their influence extended far beyond religious matters into political and military affairs, as their approval legitimized important leadership decisions while their opposition could seriously undermine tribal unity. The Magi developed into the Confederation's intellectual elite, maintaining oral traditions, conducting diplomatic negotiations, and providing the ideological framework that justified Median political ambitions. The first major Assyrian military campaign specifically targeting Median territories occurred during the reign of Shalmaneser III, who launched determined expeditions into the Zagros Mountains around 836 BCE. Assyrian records describe encounters with numerous Median chieftains who controlled heavily fortified settlements and commanded substantial military forces equipped with advanced weapons and sophisticated tactical knowledge. These campaigns revealed the remarkable extent of Median political development as Assyrian forces encountered organized resistance coordinated across multiple tribal territories through advanced communication networks and unified command structures. The Median response to Assyrian invasion demonstrated sophisticated military planning capabilities and the ability to mobilize resources from diverse tribal groups for effective common defense against external threats. Shalmaneser's forces encountered Median settlements protected by impressive stone walls, elaborate defensive ditches, and elevated positions that maximized natural advantages provided by mountainous terrain. Assyrian accounts describe fierce resistance from Median warriors who employed innovative cavalry tactics, precision archery, and guerrilla warfare techniques, specifically adapted to mountain conditions and designed to neutralize traditional Assyrian military advantages. These challenging encounters forced experienced Assyrian commanders to modify their proven siege warfare methods and develop entirely new strategies for effective mountain combat operations. The unexpected difficulty of these campaigns deeply impressed Assyrian military leaders and contributed significantly to their growing respect for Median military capabilities and political sophistication. The substantial tribute extracted from Median tribes following Shalmaneser's campaigns included enormous quantities of horses, clearly indicating the impressive scale of Median horse breeding operations and their critical importance to Assyrian military forces seeking to maintain cavalry superiority throughout their vast empire. The transformation of scattered Median tribes into a unified kingdom represents one of ancient history's most remarkable political achievements. What began as desperate attempts to coordinate military resistance against Syrian aggression evolved into something unprecedented, the creation of the first truly Iranian state that would serve as a model for all subsequent Persian imperial ventures. Political confederations among Median chieftains developed with breathtaking speed as external military pressure and internal population growth created urgent demands for more sophisticated governmental structures. The necessity of coordinating effective military responses against relentless Assyrian campaigns forced traditional tribal leaders to abandon age-old patterns of independence and forge revolutionary intertribal alliances with unified command structures capable of mobilizing resources across vast territories. Archaeological evidence throughout the Zagros region reveals the emergence of formal agreements governing territorial boundaries, military obligations, and tribute-sharing arrangements between previously autonomous tribal groups. The appearance of standardized weights, measures, and pottery styles across extensive Median territories indicates unprecedented levels of political and economic integration that transcended traditional clan loyalties and created genuinely national institutions. The leadership structures that emerged during this critical period represented ingenious solutions to complex governmental challenges. Median chieftains successfully maintained their traditional roles as tribal leaders, while simultaneously participating in broader political councils that coordinated multi-tribal activities affecting the entire confederation. This innovative dual system of governance provided essential flexibility in local affairs, while ensuring unified direction for matters involving external relations, military campaigns, and major economic policies. The remarkable success of this political model in organizing sustained resistance against Assyrian expansion demonstrated its practical advantages and contributed significantly to its persistence throughout subsequent Median history. The Confederation's ability to mobilize coordinated responses to external threats while maintaining internal stability proved that Iranian peoples possessed sophisticated political instincts that would eventually enable them to dominate the ancient Near East. The consolidation of Median tribal confederations into a unified kingdom under centralized royal authority represents one of the most significant political transformations in ancient Iranian history. According to Herodotus, writing nearly 2 centuries after the events he describes, this momentous unification occurred under the visionary leadership of Dayin-Yasis, a figure whose historical reality continues to generate scholarly debate, but whose legendary status as the founder of Median unity has profoundly influenced our understanding of early Iranian state formation processes. The Greek historian's account, preserved in his monumental histories, provides our most detailed narrative of Median political development during the tumultuous 7th century BCE, while his sources and methodology raise legitimate questions about the reliability of specific details. Herodotus presents Delorces as a village judge whose exceptional reputation for fairness and wisdom gradually attracted disputants from across Median territories seeking impartial resolution of their conflicts. The historian describes how this local magistrate's growing influence created a dangerous power vacuum when he deliberately withdrew from public life, forcing Median communities throughout the Confederation to confront the chaos and disorder that inevitably ensued without his arbitration services. This narrative framework, while potentially reflecting genuine historical processes of political consolidation, bears unmistakable hallmarks of Greek political theory regarding the origins of legitimate kingship, and may represent Herodotus's attempt to explain Median state formation using familiar Hellenic conceptual frameworks. According to this account, Median tribal leaders eventually gathered in council to address the escalating crisis created by Deos's strategic withdrawal from public affairs. These experienced chieftains allegedly recognized that their communities required unified leadership structures to maintain social order and coordinate effective responses to mounting external threats from Assyrian, Babylonian, and other regional powers seeking to exploit Median political fragmentation. The momentous decision to elect Deoses as their first king emerged from this crucial council with the explicit understanding that centralized royal authority would provide the essential institutional framework necessary for effective governance across the Confederation's diverse tribal territories. This constitutional monarchy model, as described by Herodotus, established important precedents for royal succession procedures and administrative organization that would characterize Median political structure throughout its remarkable existence. The selection of Deoses as king involved elaborate formal ceremonies designed to legitimize his unprecedented authority and establish the symbolic foundations of Median royal power. Herodotus describes intricate rituals that skillfully combine traditional Iranian customs with innovative ceremonial elements specifically designed to distinguish royal authority from conventional tribal leadership patterns that had previously governed Median society. These ceremonies allegedly included the construction of an impressive royal palace complex, the establishment of sophisticated court protocols, and the creation of specialized administrative positions that would support the complex requirements of centralized governance. While the historical accuracy of these specific details remains questionable, the underlying process of political institutionalization clearly reflects broader patterns observed throughout other ancient Near Eastern societies during similar periods of dynamic state formation. The construction of Ecbatana as the magnificent Median capital represents the most tangible achievement attributed to Dayusi's transformative reign. Modern archaeological investigations at Hamadan, the site traditionally identified with ancient Ecbatana, have revealed compelling evidence of substantial urban development during the 7th century BCE, though the specific attribution of these impressive remains to Dayusi's building program cannot be definitively established. The scale and sophistication of the architectural remains strongly suggest that Median rulers commanded significant resources and labor forces capable of executing major construction projects during this pivotal period. Herodotus provides extraordinarily detailed descriptions of Ecbatana's defensive architecture, claiming that the city featured 7 concentric walls of increasing height, each painted in different colors to create a visually striking appearance that would impress visitors and intimidate potential enemies. The innermost walls allegedly enclosed the royal palace and treasury, while outer defensive lines protected extensive residential areas and bustling commercial districts that supported the capital's diverse population. This remarkable architectural arrangement, according to the Greek historian, served both practical defensive purposes and crucial symbolic functions that emphasized the king's elevated status above his subjects. The elaborate color scheme described by Herodotus Myth, black, scarlet, blue, orange, silver, and gold for the successive walls may reflect actual Median architectural practices or represent symbolic interpretations added by later sources seeking to emphasize the kingdom's wealth and sophistication. Archaeological investigations at Hamadan have indeed uncovered substantial stone foundations and defensive installations that confirm the existence of major fortifications during the Median period. These impressive remains include massive stone walls constructed using sophisticated masonry techniques with carefully fitted blocks creating defensive barriers several meters thick. The exceptional engineering quality of these fortifications demonstrates advanced architectural knowledge and the availability of skilled craftsmen capable of executing remarkably complex construction projects that rivaled contemporary Mesopotamian achievements. The administrative apparatus established during the foundational period of Median unification represented one of the ancient world's most sophisticated governmental innovations. According to Herodotus, this revolutionary system included the strategic appointment of governors to oversee vast regional territories, the establishment of advanced communication networks connecting the capital with distant provinces, and the development of comprehensive taxation systems capable of extracting resources from diverse subject populations across the expanding kingdom. These remarkable institutional innovations, while potentially reflecting genuine Median administrative practices, may also represent later governmental developments that Herodotus or his sources anachronistically projected backward onto the reign of the legendary founder. The complexity of these systems suggests evolutionary development over multiple generations, rather than sudden implementation by a single visionary ruler, yet their fundamental principles would influence administrative practices throughout subsequent Persian imperial history. The development of centralized taxation systems demanded extraordinarily sophisticated record-keeping capabilities and standardized measurement systems that could ensure consistent collection procedures across territories populated by diverse tribal groups with varying economic practices. Archaeological evidence from Median sites throughout the Zagros region includes numerous examples of standardized weights and measures that strongly suggest the successful implementation of unified commercial standards during this transformative period. The discovery of administrative seals and sophisticated impression techniques indicates that Median bureaucrats employed formal documentation procedures for recording complex transactions and maintaining comprehensive official records. These administrative innovations provided the essential foundation for the intricate governmental systems that would later characterize both Median and Persian imperial administration. demonstrating the remarkable political sophistication achieved by Iranian peoples during their transition from tribal confederation to centralized monarchy. Military reforms associated with the unification efforts involved the fundamental transformation of traditional tribal warbands into organized royal armies, capable of executing coordinated operations across enormous territories. This military reorganization required the development of standardized equipment, comprehensive training procedures, and unified command structures that could successfully integrate warriors from different tribal backgrounds into cohesive fighting forces capable of challenging the military might of established Near Eastern powers. Archaeological evidence from Median military sites includes substantial quantities of standardized weapons and armor that strongly suggest the existence of centralized production and distribution systems for military equipment. The uniformity of these materials indicates sophisticated manufacturing capabilities and logistical networks that could supply professional military forces operating far from their home territories during extended campaigns against external enemies. The creation of elite royal bodyguard units and professional military forces loyal directly to the king, rather than traditional tribal leaders, represented a crucial innovation in Median political development. These professional warriors provided the monarchy with military capabilities completely independent of tribal militias, enabling royal authority to operate effectively even during periods when tribal loyalties remained divided, or when local chieftains questioned central governmental policies. The maintenance of professional military forces required substantial resources and advanced administrative capabilities that demonstrated the growing sophistication of Median governmental institutions. The successful implementation of these military reforms provided the foundation for the aggressive expansionist policies that would characterize the reigns of subsequent Median rulers and enable their eventual conquest of the mighty Assyrian Empire. Critical analysis of Herodotus' account reveals significant methodological problems that complicate scholarly efforts to reconstruct the historical reality of early Median kingship. The Greek historian's sources for Median history remain frustratingly unclear, and his narrative contains numerous elements that appear to reflect Greek political theory rather than authentic Iranian historical traditions passed down through oral or written sources. The constitutional monarchy model he describes, with its emphasis on elected kingship and formal governmental institutions, corresponds more closely to Greek political concepts familiar to his audience than to documented patterns of ancient Iranian political organization revealed through archaeological investigation and contemporary Assyrian records. This discrepancy raises important questions about the reliability of specific details while not necessarily invalidating the broader historical framework. Archaeological evidence provides a considerably more complex picture of Median political development that differs significantly from Herodotus's linear narrative of rapid unification under a single founding monarch. Excavations throughout Median territories reveal gradual processes of urban development, architectural sophistication, and administrative complexity that suggest evolutionary rather than revolutionary political change occurring over multiple generations. The material evidence indicates that Median state formation involved multiple centers of political authority that gradually coalesced into larger confederations through complex processes of alliance, conquest, and cultural assimilation, rather than sudden unification under a single charismatic ruler. This interpretation better explains the persistence of regional variations and tribal identities that continued throughout the period of supposed unified Median rule. The chronological framework provided by Herodotus for the reign of Deioces and subsequent development of Median kingship also presents serious difficulties when compared with other ancient sources and archaeological evidence. Assyrian records from the 7th century BCE continue to describe encounters with multiple Median chieftains and tribal confederations rather than a unified Median kingdom, suggesting that political consolidation occurred more gradually than Herodotus's dramatic narrative implies. The persistence of distinct tribal identities and significant regional variations in material culture throughout the supposed period of unified Median rule indicates that political centralization remained incomplete even during the height of Median power. This evidence suggests a more complex political reality involving federal structures that preserved local autonomy while coordinating military and diplomatic activities at the confederation level. The relationship between archaeological evidence and literary sources becomes particularly problematic when examining specific claims about Ecbatana's construction and architectural features. While excavations at Hamadan confirm substantial urban development during the Median period, the specific architectural details described by Herodotus cannot be verified through archaeological investigation, raising questions about the accuracy of his descriptions. The seven-walled city with its elaborate color scheme may represent symbolic or mythological elements added to the historical tradition rather than accurate descriptions of actual architectural features. Comparative analysis with other ancient Near Eastern capitals suggests that Herodotus may have incorporated elements from various sources to create a composite description that emphasized Median wealth and sophistication rather than providing precise architectural documentation. The economic foundations necessary to support the governmental innovations attributed to the unification period required substantial agricultural surplus and trade revenues that archaeological evidence suggests developed gradually rather than becoming available suddenly upon political unification. The construction of major urban centers, maintenance of professional military forces, and operation of complex administrative systems all demanded resources that would have accumulated over extended periods through sustained economic development. The death of Deioces around 647 BCE marked the end of the foundational period of Median unification and the beginning of an era characterized by aggressive territorial expansion and direct military confrontation with Assyrian imperial forces. His son Phraortes inherited a consolidated kingdom that possessed the administrative infrastructure and military capabilities necessary for sustained campaigns beyond traditional Median territories, setting the stage for the dramatic confrontations that would ultimately lead to Assyrian collapse and the emergence of Iranian dominance across the ancient Near East. The military revolution that swept through Median society during Phraortes' aggressive reign transformed these mountain warriors into one of the ancient world's most formidable fighting forces. Archaeological evidence from military installations constructed throughout this period reveals unprecedented standardization in weapons production, alongside the establishment of specialized training facilities specifically designed for elite cavalry units that would become the backbone of Median imperial ambitions. Excavations at sites associated with Median military camps have uncovered enormous quantities of iron spear points, arrowheads, and sword blades displaying consistent manufacturing techniques and exceptional quality standards that surpassed contemporary regional metalworking capabilities. These weapons demonstrate clear influences from advanced Assyrian military technology, while incorporating intelligent design modifications specifically adapted to Median fighting preferences and innovative tactical requirements developed through generations of mountain warfare experience. The evolution of Median cavalry warfare reached extraordinary levels of sophistication during Phraortes' expansionist campaigns. The king's forces perfected revolutionary techniques for coordinated cavalry charges that could shatter enemy formations while maintaining sufficient mobility to avoid devastating counterattacks from reorganized opponents. Median horsemen wielded composite bows that provided superior range and penetrating power compared to simple wooden bows commonly used by their adversaries throughout the Iranian plateau. The archaeological record includes numerous examples of these advanced bow designs featuring bone and horn reinforcements that dramatically increased draw weight and arrow velocity, while maintaining exceptional durability under harsh battlefield conditions. These technological innovations gave Median cavalry decisive advantages in skirmishing engagements and allowed them to inflict substantial casualties on enemy formations before closing for decisive melee combat. Phraortes' eastward expansion brought Median forces into direct contact with Persian tribes inhabiting the Fars region of the Iranian plateau, encounters that marked the beginning of complex relationships between Medes and Persians that would ultimately reshape the entire political landscape of ancient Iran. Initial Median campaigns against Persian territories encountered fierce resistance from well-organized tribal confederations led by experienced warriors who clearly understood the strategic importance of maintaining independence from foreign domination. The Persian response to Median expansion involved sophisticated defensive strategies, including the formation of military alliances among previously independent tribes and the rapid adoption of military innovations specifically designed to counter established Median cavalry advantages. These countermeasures demonstrated the political sophistication and military adaptability that would later enable Persian tribes to reverse the power relationship and establish their own dominance over the Iranian plateau. Siege warfare techniques developed during Frodo's campaigns demonstrated the remarkable technological sophistication achieved by Median military engineers operating far from traditional support bases. Archaeological investigations at sites besieged during this period reveal compelling evidence of complex siege works, including massive earthen ramps, towering wooden siege engines, and sophisticated undermining operations specifically designed to breach the strongest defensive walls. Median forces employed battering rams constructed with iron-reinforced heads and innovative mobile protective shelters that allowed assault troops to approach heavily fortified positions, while minimizing casualties from concentrated defensive archery. These advanced siege techniques represented intelligent adaptations of proven Assyrian military engineering methods, modified to suit the challenging mountainous terrain and distinctive fortification styles encountered throughout Iranian territories. The rapid expansion of Median territory under Pharaohs demanded the development of comprehensive administrative systems capable of effectively governing diverse populations spread across vast distances and varied geographical conditions. Archaeological records from newly conquered territories provide clear evidence of sophisticated Median administrative installations, including heavily fortified compounds that serve simultaneously as regional governmental headquarters and secure storage facilities for tribute collection operations. These administrative centers featured standardized architectural designs that reflected careful central planning while intelligently incorporating local building materials and traditional construction techniques that reduced costs and demonstrated respect for regional preferences. The presence of distinctive Median administrative seals and comprehensive record-keeping materials at these sites indicates successful implementation of bureaucratic procedures specifically designed for managing complex provincial affairs across culturally diverse territories. Tribute systems established throughout conquered territories provided essential economic foundations for continued military expansion, while gradually integrating subject populations into the broader Median political structure through economic incentives and administrative participation. Archaeological evidence suggests that tribute collection involved both agricultural products and specialized craft goods, with different regions contributing according to their particular economic strengths and productive capabilities. Horse breeding territories provided essential cavalry mounts and valuable breeding stock that maintained Median military superiority, while fertile agricultural areas supplied grain and other foodstuffs necessary to support extended military campaigns, operating far from traditional supply bases. Specialized craft-producing communities contributed sophisticated metalwork, luxurious textiles, and precious goods that enhanced both the wealth and international prestige of the expanding Median royal court. The inevitable confrontation between Median territorial expansion and established Assyrian imperial interests intensified dramatically as Phraortes' campaigns extended into territories that Assyria had long considered within its exclusive sphere of influence. Assyrian records from this turbulent period describe increasing difficulties in maintaining effective control over tribute payments from Iranian territories as mounting Median military pressure systematically disrupted established collection procedures and undermined traditional authority structures. The Assyrian response involved deploying substantial military forces to the volatile Zagros region, initiating an extended series of campaigns specifically designed to reassert imperial authority and permanently halt Median territorial expansion before it could threaten core Assyrian interests in Mesopotamia. These military interventions marked the beginning of prolonged warfare that would ultimately determine whether Iranian or Mesopotamian civilizations would dominate the ancient Near East. The first major battlefield confrontation between Median and Assyrian forces during Phraortes' reign occurred in the strategically crucial central Zagros Mountains, where highly mobile Median cavalry encountered disciplined Assyrian heavy infantry formations, supported by sophisticated siege equipment and experienced auxiliary troops drawn from throughout the Assyrian Empire. This engagement demonstrated the complex tactical challenges faced by both armies when operating in mountainous terrain that favored neither traditional Assyrian siege warfare techniques nor conventional Median cavalry maneuvers that had proven so effective on open ground. The battle's ultimate outcome remains frustratingly unclear from available historical sources, but archaeological evidence strongly suggests that both sides suffered substantial casualties while failing to achieve decisive strategic advantages that could determine the campaign's final result. Subsequent encounters between Median and Assyrian forces revealed the remarkable adaptive capabilities of both sophisticated military systems as experienced commanders developed innovative tactics specifically suited to the unique challenges of Zagro's warfare. Assyrian forces intelligently modified their traditional heavy infantry formations to create more flexible units capable of operating effectively in broken terrain while maintaining essential defensive cohesion against devastating cavalry attacks. Median commanders responded by developing revolutionary combined arms tactics that skillfully integrated cavalry charges with coordinated infantry assaults and precision archery barrages, designed to exploit specific weaknesses in modified Assyrian formations. These tactical innovations would influence military development throughout the ancient world and establish patterns of warfare that would persist for centuries. The relentless economic strain of continuous military campaigning began creating devastating effects on both Median and Assyrian state capabilities as the prolonged conflict stretched resources beyond sustainable limits. 3. As warfare extended across multiple brutal years, the enormous costs of maintaining vast armies in hostile territory, supplying sophisticated siege equipment, and replacing mounting casualties created unprecedented financial burdens that demanded increasingly harsh tribute extraction from already exhausted subject territories throughout both empires. Archaeological evidence from this turbulent period reveals unmistakable signs of severe economic stress across both Median and Assyrian territories, with dramatically reduced construction activity and noticeably simplified material culture, indicating widespread resource scarcity directly caused by massive military expenditures. Urban centers that had previously displayed prosperity and growth now showed evidence of population decline, reduced craft production, and the abandonment of non-essential building projects as societies focused their remaining resources on military survival. The climactic phase of Phraortes' ambitious confrontation with Assyrian imperial forces erupted during a massive campaign that brought Median armies deeper into territories under direct Assyrian administrative control than any previous expedition had achieved. The Median king personally commanded this crucial expedition, which represented both the culmination of his expansionist ambitions and the ultimate test of Median military capabilities against the full concentrated strength of battle-hardened Assyrian imperial forces. The campaign involved systematic sieges of several heavily fortified cities alongside multiple large-scale pitched battles that demonstrated the remarkable tactical sophistication both armies had achieved through years of continuous warfare against equally skilled opponents. Each engagement pushed military innovation to new limits, as commanders sought decisive advantages through novel tactical combinations and technological improvements that could break the deadly stalemate. The final battle of Phraortes' reign occurred under circumstances that remain partially obscured by conflicting ancient sources, yet archaeological evidence provides compelling insights into this massive engagement involving substantial forces from both civilizations. Battlefield archaeology reveals unmistakable evidence of incredibly intense fighting, with enormous quantities of weapons, armor fragments, and military equipment scattered across an extensive area that suggests prolonged combat over several days. The distribution pattern of recovered artifacts indicates that the battle evolved through multiple distinct phases, beginning with cavalry engagements, progressing through coordinated infantry assaults, and culminating in desperate siege operations against fortified positions that had become focal points for the final struggles. The presence of both Median and Assyrian equipment types throughout the battlefield area provides clear evidence that fighting was extraordinarily prolonged and involved. Vicious hand-to-hand combat, after initial tactical maneuvers failed to produce the decisive results both commanders desperately sought. The death of Phraortes during this final confrontation marked not only the end of the most aggressive phase of Median territorial expansion, but also created an immediate crisis in Median political leadership at the worst possible moment. The king's battlefield death, while demonstrating his personal courage and unwavering commitment to Median military objectives, left the kingdom without established succession arrangements precisely when victorious Assyrian forces threatened to exploit this catastrophic leadership vacuum. The immediate aftermath of Froda's death witnessed rapid Median military withdrawal from advanced positions as surviving commanders, prioritized protecting core territorial holdings over maintaining recently conquered territories that could no longer be adequately defended. This strategic retreat, while militarily necessary, represented a devastating psychological blow to Median confidence and encouraged enemy forces to press their temporary advantages. The impact of Phraortes' unexpected death extended far beyond immediate military consequences to fundamentally affect the entire structure of Median political organization. The king's aggressive expansion policies had created a heavily militarized governmental system that depended critically on continuous successful campaigning to maintain internal tribal cohesion and essential economic stability through plunder and tribute extraction from conquered territories. His sudden death catastrophically disrupted this delicately balanced system at precisely the moment when mounting external military pressure from resurgent Assyrian forces threatened to reverse all territorial gains achieved during his transformative reign. The immense challenge facing surviving Median political leaders involved maintaining territorial integrity while simultaneously managing the transition to new royal authority under extraordinarily difficult circumstances that tested every aspect of their governmental capabilities. The succession crisis following Phraortes' battlefield death created a dangerous power vacuum that attracted opportunistic intervention from nomadic Scythian tribes who had been carefully monitoring the prolonged conflict between Medes and Assyrians from their vast territories north of the Caucasus Mountains. These skilled Iranian-speaking nomads, whose exceptional military prowess and strategic mobility had already established their dominance across the Pontic steppes, quickly recognized the extraordinary strategic opportunity presented by Median political instability and Assyrian military exhaustion. The Scythian intervention represented far more than simple opportunistic raiding activity. It constituted a carefully calculated attempt to establish permanent tributary relationships with sedentary populations while systematically exploiting the temporary weakness of both major regional powers. Archaeological evidence from sites across the Zagros Mountains reveals the distinctive material signature of Scythian presence during this chaotic period, characterized by unique bronze and iron artifacts that clearly reflect the nomadic lifestyle and specialized military preferences of these formidable steppe warriors. Scythian arrowheads recovered from numerous sites throughout Median territory display the characteristic three-lobe design that maximized penetrating power while remaining lightweight enough for effective mounted archery tactics. These precisely crafted projectile points were manufactured using advanced metallurgical techniques that produced consistently sharp cutting edges and exceptional structural durability, reflecting sophisticated weapon-making traditions developed by nomadic peoples who depended entirely on their military equipment for survival and continued success. The Scythian military advantage rested primarily on their superior strategic mobility and unmatched archery skills, which proved devastatingly effective against the heavier-equipped forces typically employed by sedentary kingdoms throughout the region. Scythian warriors rode small, exceptionally hardy horses specifically bred for endurance rather than size, enabling them to cover vast distances rapidly while maintaining crucial tactical flexibility in fluid combat situations. Their composite bows, constructed from carefully selected horn, wood and sinew components, provided exceptional range and pinpoint accuracy that enabled them to engage enemy forces from distances that prevented any possibility of effective retaliation. This deadly combination of unmatched mobility and devastating ranged firepower allowed relatively small Sicilian forces to defeat much larger armies by consistently avoiding direct confrontation while inflicting continuous casualties through precisely executed hit-and-run tactics. The initial Scythian incursions into Median territory systematically targeted isolated settlements and vulnerable military installations that could not mount effective resistance against swift cavalry attacks, executed with perfect timing. Archaeological investigations at sites attacked during this period reveal compelling evidence of sudden, overwhelming destruction, with burned buildings containing hastily abandoned personal possessions and stored goods that their owners had no time to secure during the rapid assault. The pattern of systematic destruction suggests that Scythian raiders focused primarily on seizing portable wealth, while carefully avoiding prolonged siege operations that would significantly reduce their essential tactical mobility and exposed them to counterattack from reorganizing enemy forces. Assyrian correspondence from this chaotic period describes alarming encounters with formidable Scythian forces operating across a vast geographical area extending from the snow-capped Caucasus Mountains to the central Zagros highlands, clearly indicating the massive scale of nomadic military operations and their devastating impact on regional political stability throughout the ancient Near East. These detailed Assyrian accounts emphasize the extraordinary difficulty of engaging highly mobile Scythian forces using traditional siege warfare techniques and heavy infantry formations that had been specifically designed for confronting predictable sedentary opponents rather than elusive nomadic warriors. The duration of Scythian dominance over significant portions of Median territory remains a contentious subject of ongoing scholarly debate, with different ancient sources providing frustratingly conflicting chronological frameworks for these transformative events. Herodotus claims that Scythian rule persisted for an extraordinary 28 years, while other contemporary sources suggest considerably shorter periods of nomadic influence that would fundamentally alter our understanding of this crucial historical period. Archaeological evidence indicates that Scythian presence was strategically concentrated and geographically selective rather than comprehensive, focusing primarily on areas that provided crucial strategic advantages for mobile warfare operations. River valleys and mountain passes that facilitated rapid movement between different territorial zones became focal points for Scythian control, enabling these nomadic forces to project power across enormous distances while maintaining essential logistical flexibility. The material remains recovered from numerous sites suggest that Scythian control was never total or systematically administrative in the manner typical of sedentary empires, but rather involved the establishment of temporary operational bases from which devastating raiding expeditions could be launched against surrounding territories. This approach maximized nomadic military advantages while minimizing the administrative burdens that would have reduced their essential mobility and tactical flexibility. The impact of sustained Scythian presence on fundamental Median social structures appears to have been considerably less transformative than some dramatic ancient sources suggest, with comprehensive archaeological evidence indicating that basic administrative and economic systems remained largely intact throughout the extended period of nomadic influence. Median settlements demonstrate remarkable continuity in architectural styles, craft production techniques, and agricultural practices that suggest local populations successfully maintain their traditional lifestyles while adapting pragmatically to the specific demands of nomadic overlords. The tribute systematically extracted by Scythian forces consisted primarily of easily portable wealth and valuable livestock, rather than fundamental changes to existing social organization or established economic systems. This selective approach reflected nomadic priorities and practical limitations while preserving the productive foundations that made tributary relationships sustainable over extended periods. The sophisticated administrative systems originally established during Dios's foundational reign and significantly expanded under Phratoda's aggressive expansion demonstrated remarkable institutional resilience during the challenging Scythian interregnum. Local officials courageously continued to maintain essential records and collect necessary taxes, even while formally acknowledging nomadic authority and adapting their procedures to accommodate new political realities. Archaeological evidence from various administrative sites includes numerous cuneiform tablets and detailed seal impressions that meticulously document ongoing bureaucratic activities throughout the entire period of Scythian influence. These invaluable records clearly indicate that experienced Median administrative personnel successfully adapted their established procedures to accommodate nomadic demands, while carefully preserving the essential institutional knowledge necessary for eventual restoration of centralized royal authority once political conditions permitted. The religious and cultural impact of extended Scythian presence on traditional Median society proved similarly limited in scope, with extensive archaeological evidence suggesting that local populations maintained their ancestral spiritual practices while selectively incorporating certain elements of nomadic culture that enhanced rather than displaced existing traditions. Distinctive Scythian artistic motifs occasionally appear on Median metalwork and pottery from this period, but these influences represent superficial decorative elements rather than fundamental changes to deeply rooted religious beliefs or core cultural values. The persistence of traditional Median fire altars and established religious installations throughout nomadic-controlled territories clearly indicates that the Scythian interlude did not significantly disrupt the fundamental spiritual practices that provided essential cultural continuity across diverse tribal boundaries. This religious continuity would prove crucial for maintaining Median identity during the period of foreign domination and facilitating eventual political reunification under indigenous leadership. The technological exchange between highly skilled Scythian warriors and adaptable Median populations during this extended period resulted in significant improvements to Median military capabilities, particularly in specialized areas related to advanced mounted warfare and precision archery techniques that would transform their future military potential. Archaeological evidence includes numerous examples of improved bow designs that intelligently incorporated proven Scythian construction methods while maintaining distinctly Median decorative preferences and cultural significance. Horse breeding practices also benefited substantially from sustained contact with unparalleled nomadic expertise, with Median horse remains from this period showing clear genetic influences from superior steppe breeds that dramatically enhance speed and endurance characteristics essential for effective cavalry operations. These crucial technological transfers would prove absolutely vital for the comprehensive military reforms that Cyaxares would implement once he successfully consolidated his political authority. The gradual consolidation of Cyaxares' royal power began with carefully orchestrated diplomatic efforts to secure the essential loyalty of Median tribal leaders who had maintained semi-autonomous status during the prolonged period of Scythian influence. The young king skillfully employed a sophisticated combination of traditional tribal protocols and innovative political arrangements to rebuild the powerful coalition that had previously supported his father's ambitious expansionist policies. Archaeological evidence from various tribal territories shows renewed construction activity and the systematic standardization of administrative procedures that clearly indicate the successful restoration of effective centralized authority. This process of political consolidation required extraordinarily careful negotiation with influential tribal chieftains who had gained increased independence during the interregnum period and were reluctant to surrender their enhanced autonomy. The comprehensive military reorganization undertaken by Cyaxares represented a fundamental transformation of established Median military doctrine based on hard-learned lessons from the Scythian interregnum and previous costly conflicts with formidable Assyrian forces. The experienced king clearly recognized that traditional Median military organization, which had relied heavily on tribal levies and loosely coordinated cavalry forces, was completely inadequate for confronting the sophisticated military challenges posed by both nomadic raiders and professional imperial armies. The revolutionary new military system emphasized rigorous professional training, standardized equipment production, and specialized tactical formations that could operate effectively against diverse types of opponents under varying battlefield conditions. This systematic approach marked a decisive break from traditional approaches and established foundations for future military success that would reshape regional power dynamics. The creation of specialized infantry units marked a significant departure from previous Median military practice, which had focused almost exclusively on cavalry warfare operations. These innovative infantry formations employed standardized weapons and protective armor that provided enhanced battlefield protection while maintaining sufficient tactical mobility essential for effective mountain warfare in their traditional territorial homeland. The successful integration of these specialized military units demanded the development of entirely new command structures and revolutionary tactical doctrines capable of coordinating complex battlefield maneuvers involving different types of forces operating in unified formations. Cyaxares' comprehensive military reforms established a professional officer corps specifically trained in the demanding coordination of combined arms operations that could maximize the devastating effectiveness of infantry, cavalry, and archer units working in perfect concert against enemy forces. Archaeological evidence from military training sites throughout Median territory reveals the systematic construction of specialized facilities designed for practicing coordinated maneuvers alongside the development of standardized signals and sophisticated communication procedures that enabled effective battlefield coordination even during the chaos of intense combat. These training installations demonstrate the remarkable level of military professionalism that Cyaxares demanded from his reformed armed forces. The economic foundation necessary to support these ambitious military innovations required significant improvements to Median administrative and productive capabilities that could sustain professional armies over extended periods. The maintenance of professional military units demanded regular monetary compensation, standardized equipment production, and specialized training facilities that represented substantial ongoing expenses requiring careful financial planning and resource management. Archaeological evidence clearly indicates that Cyaxares' government implemented comprehensive new taxation systems and streamlined tribute collection procedures specifically designed to generate the substantial revenues necessary to fund military modernization, while simultaneously maintaining the civilian infrastructure required for continued economic development. This balanced approach ensured that military improvements didn't compromise the economic foundation upon which they depended. The completion of Cyaxares' transformative military reforms by 615 BCE had successfully transformed the Median kingdom into a formidable military power, fully capable of challenging established Assyrian dominance across the ancient Near East. The king's systematic reorganization of Median armed forces had created a professional military machine that brilliantly combined the traditional mobility advantages of Iranian cavalry with the disciplined formations and advanced siege warfare capabilities necessary for conquering heavily fortified urban centers. Archaeological evidence from military installations constructed during the final phase of these comprehensive reforms reveals the establishment of permanent training camps, standardized weapons production facilities, and sophisticated logistical support systems that enabled sustained military campaigns operating far from traditional Median home territories. These installations represented unprecedented military infrastructure that would support the kingdom's final assault on Assyrian power. The strategic situation throughout Mesopotamia during this critical period presented Cyaxares with extraordinary opportunities for territorial expansion and the definitive resolution of the centuries-long conflict with the Syrian imperial forces. The mighty Assyrian Empire, despite its continued military capabilities and administrative sophistication, faced mounting internal pressures from rebellious subject populations, severe economic strain from prolonged warfare, and destabilizing succession disputes that significantly weakened central authority at the worst possible moment. Babylonia, under the visionary leadership of Nabopolassar, had successfully established independence from Assyrian control and was actively seeking reliable allies for a coordinated assault on the imperial heartland. The remarkable convergence of these favorable factors created ideal conditions for a decisive confrontation that would completely reshape the political landscape of the ancient Near East and establish Iranian dominance over vast territories previously controlled by Mesopotamian powers. Cyaxares clearly recognized that the complete destruction of Assyrian power required far more than successful military campaigns alone. It demanded a comprehensive strategic approach that could simultaneously attack Assyrian territories from multiple directions while preventing the empire from concentrating its formidable defensive resources against any single threat. This sophisticated understanding of strategic warfare demonstrated the political and military maturity that Median leadership had achieved through decades of conflict and adaptation. The Median kings carefully orchestrated diplomatic initiatives toward Babylon represented a calculated effort to coordinate anti-Assyrian activities and ensure that Median military efforts would be supported by simultaneous Babylonian operations against Assyrian positions in southern Mesopotamia. These negotiations required delicate diplomatic skills and strategic vision that transcended traditional tribal approaches to international relations. The complex negotiations between Cyaxares and Nabopolassar involved intricate discussions regarding territorial division, military coordination procedures, and post-war political arrangements that would govern relations between the two kingdoms following the anticipated Assyrian defeat. These diplomatic achievements demonstrated the sophisticated political capabilities that Median rulers had developed alongside their military innovations. The formal alliance between Media and Babylon, concluded around 614 BCE, established the essential framework for coordinated military operations that would prove absolutely decisive in the final assault on Assyrian power. The treaty arrangements, while not preserved in complete form, clearly included specific provisions regarding the systematic division of Assyrian territories, with Media claiming rights to northern and eastern regions while Babylon would control southern and western areas. Archaeological evidence from sites along the Median-Babylonian border shows the construction of joint military installations and supply depots that effectively supported the complex logistical requirements of coordinated campaign operations involving multiple armies operating across vast distances. These installations represented unprecedented cooperation between Iranian and Mesopotamian military systems. The alliance also encompassed detailed agreements regarding the sharing of siege equipment, technical expertise, and crucial intelligence information that significantly enhanced the military capabilities of both kingdoms, while reducing the individual costs and risks associated with major military operations against such a formidable opponent. The initial phase of the coordinated assault on Assyrian territories began with systematic Median attacks on fortified positions throughout the northern Zagros Mountains that had previously served as forward bases for Assyrian military operations against Iranian territories. These preliminary campaigns effectively tested the practical effectiveness of Sealskari's military reforms while eliminating dangerous Assyrian strongholds that could threaten Median supply lines during subsequent operations deeper into Mesopotamian territory. The archaeological record from sites captured during these initial operations reveals compelling evidence of sophisticated siege techniques, including the deployment of massive battering rams, towering siege engines, and systematic undermining operations that clearly demonstrate the advanced technical capabilities achieved by Median military engineers through professional training and standardized equipment production. The remarkable success of these preliminary operations encouraged Cyaxares to launch increasingly ambitious campaigns specifically targeting major Assyrian administrative centers and crucial military installations throughout the empire's northern territories. Median forces advanced steadily westward from the Zagros Mountains, employing refined combined arms tactics that skillfully integrated cavalry reconnaissance, coordinated infantry assaults, and specialized siege equipment to systematically overcome even the strongest Assyrian defensive positions. The speed and devastating effectiveness of these advances completely surprised experienced Assyrian commanders who had seriously underestimated both the extent of Median military modernization and the tactical sophistication achieved through years of intensive professional training and standardized equipment production. This strategic surprise provided crucial advantages that Median forces exploited ruthlessly. The siege of Araphav in 614 BCE marked the first major test of Median siege warfare capabilities against a heavily fortified Assyrian city defended by experienced garrison forces and sophisticated defensive systems that represented the pinnacle of Assyrian military engineering. Archaeological evidence from strategic border regions includes numerous examples of standardized message containers and sophisticated sealing techniques that ensured absolutely secure communication across the extensive distances involved in coordinated military operations between allied forces. These communication systems represented unprecedented cooperation between Iranian and Mesopotamian civilizations and demonstrated the remarkable level of strategic planning that made the final assault possible. The campaign of 612 BCE represented the ultimate culmination of the Median-Babylonian alliance's years of strategic planning and intensive military preparation. The target selected for this decisive operation was Nineveh itself, the greatest urban center of the Assyrian Empire, and the ultimate symbol of imperial power that had dominated the ancient Near East for centuries through military might and administrative sophistication. The selection of Nineveh as the primary objective required extraordinarily careful consideration of the enormous military challenges involved in besieging and capturing one of the most heavily fortified cities in the ancient world. The city's formidable defensive systems included multiple concentric walls rising to enormous heights, elaborate gate complexes designed to channel attackers into killing zones, and sophisticated water supply systems that had been specifically engineered to withstand extended siege operations by the most determined enemies. Archaeological evidence from Nineveh reveals the massive scale of defensive preparations undertaken by experienced Assyrian forces in desperate anticipation of the final siege. The city's towering walls were systematically reinforced with additional stone facing that created virtually impregnable barriers. Defensive towers were significantly heightened and strengthened with advanced engineering techniques, while extensive supplies of weapons, food, and other essential necessities were carefully accumulated within the defensive perimeter. The comprehensive Assyrian preparations also included the construction of additional internal defensive lines that could provide crucial fallback positions if outer defenses were somehow breached, alongside the establishment of underground storage facilities that could protect essential supplies from enemy action during prolonged siege operations. These preparations demonstrated that Assyrian leadership fully understood the existential nature of the threat they faced. The Median forces that participated in the historic siege of Nineveh represented the complete implementation of Cyaxares' revolutionary military reforms, with specialized units operating in precisely coordinated formations specifically designed to maximize their collective effectiveness against the strongest possible opposition. Elite infantry units equipped with standardized iron weapons and advanced protective armor formed the backbone of assault forces, while highly mobile cavalry units provided essential reconnaissance capabilities, systematic harassment of enemy supply lines, and rapid response capabilities that could exploit tactical opportunities as they developed. Specialized archer formations delivered concentrated missile firepower that effectively suppressed defensive activities along the walls, while providing crucial covering fire for dangerous assault operations against heavily defended positions. The coordination between these different military branches represented the pinnacle of ancient military organization and tactical sophistication. The siege equipment employed by Median forces included massive battering rams constructed with iron reinforcements that could deliver devastating blows against stone fortifications, towering wooden siege engines that could be maneuvered against different sections of the defensive walls, and sophisticated catapults capable of delivering heavy stones and incendiary projectiles that created chaos within the besieged city. The crucial Babylonian contribution to the siege operations included specialized river warfare capabilities that proved absolutely essential for controlling water access to the besieged city. Nabopolassar's experienced forces employed innovative rivercraft and advanced engineering techniques that enabled them to systematically divert or control the flow of rivers that supplied Nineveh's essential water systems. Archaeological evidence strongly suggests that the siege involved systematic efforts to completely undermine the city's water supply, while simultaneously preventing the defenders from accessing external sources of fresh water. This strategic approach attacked the fundamental requirements for urban survival and created conditions that made prolonged resistance impossible regardless of military preparations. The remarkable coordination of land-based siege operations with specialized river warfare demonstrated the sophisticated level of joint planning achieved by the Allied forces through months of careful preparation and strategic coordination. This integrated approach represented a new level of military cooperation that maximized the strengths of both kingdoms while minimizing their individual vulnerabilities. The siege of Nineveh lasted for approximately 3 months, during which both sides employed increasingly desperate measures to achieve their respective objectives. The archaeological record reveals compelling evidence of intense fighting along multiple sections of the city's defensive perimeter, with enormous quantities of weapons, armor, and other military equipment scattered across extensive battlefield areas. The distribution pattern of recovered artifacts suggests that the siege involved continuous assaults and determined counterattacks, with neither side able to achieve decisive advantages until the final phases of the operation, when accumulated damage and resource depletion finally tipped the balance decisively toward the attackers. The presence of both Median and Babylonian equipment types throughout the siege areas clearly indicates that Allied forces maintained coordinated operations throughout the entire extended siege period. The final assault on Nineveh began with carefully coordinated attacks on multiple sections of the defensive walls, an approach specifically designed to prevent Assyrian defenders from concentrating their remaining forces at any single critical point. Median siege equipment successfully breached the outer defensive lines through a devastating combination of battering ram operations and systematic undermining activities that collapsed substantial sections of the supposedly impregnable fortification system. The crucial breakthrough was immediately exploited by disciplined infantry and cavalry units that poured through the gaps in coordinated formations, overwhelming remaining Assyrian resistance through superior numbers, advanced equipment, and exceptional tactical coordination that reflected years of professional training and battlefield experience. Archaeological evidence from the destruction layers reveals the extraordinary intensity of the final fighting, with burned buildings containing abandoned weapons and personal possessions that tell the story of the city's final desperate hours. The discovery of these artifacts provides haunting testimony to the human cost of this historic confrontation that ended centuries of Assyrian dominance. The destruction of Nineveh was systematic and thorough, with Allied forces implementing deliberate policies specifically designed to eliminate the city's capacity to serve as a center of future Assyrian resistance. The archaeological record shows unmistakable evidence of widespread burning, with the destruction layers containing charred wooden beams, collapsed mud brick walls, and melted metal objects that indicate the extremely high temperatures achieved during the massive conflagration that consumed the ancient capital. The systematic nature of this destruction suggests that it was not simply the inevitable result of military action, but represented a calculated political effort to eliminate Nineveh as a symbol of Assyrian imperial power that had oppressed countless peoples throughout the region for generations. Royal palaces, administrative buildings, and religious installations were specifically targeted for complete destruction, while residential areas suffered varying degrees of damage depending on their strategic importance and symbolic value. The capture of Nineveh's legendary royal treasury provided the victorious Allied forces with enormous quantities of gold, silver, precious stones, and other valuable objects that had been systematically accumulated through centuries of imperial tribute collection from conquered territories across the known world. The dramatic expansion of Median territory into eastern Anatolia brought Cyaxares' formidable forces into direct contact with the prosperous Lydian kingdom, which had been steadily expanding eastward from its wealthy base in western Anatolia under aggressive rulers seeking to control lucrative trade routes. The initial encounters between highly trained Median and Lydian forces occurred in strategically disputed territories where both kingdoms claimed a legitimate sovereignty over local populations and crucial strategic positions that controlled access to vital mountain passes. These confrontations represented an entirely new phase in Median military operations, as sophisticated Lydian military capabilities and tactical doctrines differed significantly from those employed by Assyrian imperial forces and nomadic opponents that experienced Median armies had previously encountered throughout their campaigns of territorial expansion. The Lydian military system emphasized disciplined heavy infantry formations supported by well-equipped cavalry units and specialized siege equipment that reflected strong Greek military influences skillfully combined with traditional Anatolian tactical innovations. Lydian forces employed bronze and iron weapons of exceptional quality, manufactured using advanced metallurgical techniques that produced superior cutting edges and enhanced structural durability that rivaled the finest weapons produced anywhere in the ancient world. The archaeological record from early Median Lydian battlefields reveals the remarkable technical standards achieved by both sides in sophisticated weapons production, alongside clear evidence of the extraordinary intensity of combat between well-equipped, professional armies operating at the highest levels of military efficiency. The presence of substantial quantities of broken weapons and damaged armor scattered across battlefield sites indicates that these engagements involved prolonged, desperate fighting between forces of roughly equal capabilities, tactical sophistication, and battlefield determination. Neither side possessed decisive advantages that could guarantee victory through superior technology or tactical doctrine alone. The challenging geographic conditions of warfare in eastern Anatolia required both Median and Lydian military forces to significantly adapt their established tactical doctrines to mountainous terrain that severely limited the effectiveness of traditional cavalry operations while strongly favoring defensive positions and systematic siege warfare approaches that maximized natural advantages provided by the landscape. The region's extraordinarily complex topography created numerous strategic positions that could effectively control access to important valleys and crucial mountain passes, leading to an extended series of campaigns specifically focused on capturing and securely holding key fortified positions that commanded territorial control over vast areas through their strategic locations. Archaeological investigations at sites contested during this period reveal compelling evidence of sophisticated fortification systems constructed by both sides, featuring defensive installations that incorporated advanced engineering techniques and architectural innovations specifically designed to maximize defensive advantages while minimizing vulnerabilities to siege warfare tactics employed by determined attackers. The escalating conflict between Media and Lydia developed gradually as both ambitious kingdoms sought to establish clear territorial boundaries and secure permanent control over economically important regions that could provide essential resources for continued military expansion and economic development. The disputed territories contained valuable mineral resources, particularly rich silver and iron deposits, that were absolutely essential for weapons production and broader economic prosperity. Control over these precious resources became a major determining factor in the strategic calculations of both kingdoms, as reliable access to raw materials directly affected military capabilities and long-term economic prosperity that funded continued territorial expansion and administrative sophistication. Archaeological evidence from contested mining sites throughout the region clearly shows evidence of changing political control and the implementation of different extraction techniques as territorial authorities shifted between competing Median and Lydian administrative systems. The intensive military campaigns between Media and Lydia demonstrated the exceptional tactical sophistication achieved by both kingdoms through their respective comprehensive military development programs that emphasized professional training, standardized equipment, and innovative tactical approaches. Median forces skillfully employed the proven combined arms tactics perfected during their successful campaigns against mighty Assyria, coordinating complex operations involving infantry, cavalry, and archer units supported by specialized siege equipment that could overcome even the strongest fortifications. Lydian forces responded with tactical innovations that maximized their established advantages in heavy infantry combat, while simultaneously developing effective countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize dangerous Median cavalry operations that had proven so devastating in previous campaigns against other opponents throughout the region. The resulting battles involved extraordinarily complex maneuvers and continuous tactical adaptations that clearly showcase the remarkable military expertise achieved by both sides through years of intensive professional training and extensive combat experience gained during previous campaigns, against various opponents with different tactical approaches and military capabilities. The decisive engagement between Median and Lydian forces occurred on May 28, 585 BCE, during a massive battle that was dramatically interrupted by a total solar eclipse that suddenly darkened the battlefield at the height of intense combat operations involving thousands of warriors engaged in desperate fighting. The extraordinary astronomical phenomenon, which had been accurately predicted by Greek philosophers but remained completely unexpected by the combatants themselves, created a moment of supernatural terror that caused both armies to immediately cease fighting. Both sides interpreted the eclipse as unmistakable divine intervention requiring immediate peace negotiations to avoid further supernatural punishment for their warfare. Archaeological evidence recovered from the battlefield includes numerous weapons and pieces of equipment abandoned by both sides during the sudden cessation of hostilities, providing clear indication of the profound psychological impact this celestial event had on experienced warriors who had never witnessed such a phenomenon. The resulting peace treaty negotiated with Lydia marked the beginning of the most prosperous and culturally sophisticated period in Median history under the enlightened reign of Astyages, who inherited a vast kingdom that stretched impressively from the Halys River in the west to the edges of the Indian subcontinent in the east, encompassing territories and populations that represented unprecedented diversity and economic potential. The new king's accession around 585 BCE coincided perfectly with the completion of territorial consolidation efforts that had successfully transformed the Medes from a collection of independent mountain tribes into the dominant political and military power across the entire Iranian plateau surrounding regions. Archaeological evidence from magnificent Ecbatana during the early years of Astyages' reign reveals extensive construction projects that dramatically expanded the capital's administrative capacity while incorporating stunning architectural innovations that reflected the kingdom's enhanced international status and remarkable cultural sophistication that rivaled the greatest cities of the ancient world. The comprehensive administrative apparatus developed under Astyages represented a significant evolution from the military-focused governmental systems established by his predecessors, who had necessarily prioritized warfare and territorial expansion over internal development and administrative sophistication during the kingdom's formative period when survival and expansion were paramount concerns. The king implemented comprehensive bureaucratic reforms that created specialized governmental departments for managing different aspects of imperial administration, including separate offices specifically dedicated to tribute collection procedures, military organization and logistics, judicial affairs and legal administration, and complex diplomatic relations with neighboring kingdoms and distant trading partners. The kingdom's remarkable territorial expansion had brought invaluable mineral deposits, extraordinarily fertile agricultural regions, and strategically crucial trade routes under centralized administrative control that could coordinate resource extraction and commercial activities on an unprecedented scale throughout the ancient world. Archaeological evidence from mining sites throughout Median territory reveals the systematic implementation of advanced extraction techniques that maximize production while maintaining sustainable operations over extended periods that would support the kingdom's long-term prosperity. The rich silver mines of eastern Anatolia, acquired through the territorial settlement with Lydia following their dramatic peace treaty, provided enormous quantities of precious metal that funded continued governmental expansion and comprehensive military modernization programs that maintained Median superiority over potential rivals. Median mining engineers developed revolutionary extraction techniques that enabled deeper excavation operations and more efficient processing methods than had been achieved by any previous operators throughout the region. The archaeological record from these extensive mining complexes includes compelling evidence of advanced smelting facilities, sophisticated water management systems, and permanent residential compounds designed specifically for mining communities that could maintain continuous production operations throughout all seasons. The systematic standardization of silver ingot weights and purity standards throughout Median territory clearly indicates the successful implementation of centralized quality control procedures that significantly enhance both the value and international acceptability of Median silver in markets throughout the known world. The agricultural productivity of vast territories under Median control increased dramatically through the implementation of improved irrigation systems and innovative farming techniques that maximized crop yields while extending cultivation into previously marginal areas that had never supported intensive agriculture. The kingdom's strategic control over major river systems enabled large-scale irrigation projects that transformed arid regions into productive agricultural zones capable of supporting dense populations and generating substantial surplus production. Archaeological investigations at irrigation sites reveal sophisticated engineering works, including extensive canal systems, massive water storage reservoirs, and complex distribution networks that required coordinated planning across multiple tribal territories and substantial labor investments over extended periods. The increased agricultural output provided essential food surpluses necessary to support growing urban populations, professional military forces, and specialized craft workers while generating valuable export commodities that enhance Median participation in lucrative international trade networks. The expansion of trade networks under Astyages connected Median territories with commercial systems extending from the Mediterranean Sea to Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent, creating unprecedented opportunities for economic growth and cultural exchange. Median merchants established trading posts and commercial facilities throughout this vast network, creating standardized procedures for conducting business across cultural and linguistic boundaries that had previously limited international commerce. Archaeological evidence from trading centers includes numerous examples of standardized weights and measures, sophisticated commercial seals and documentation systems, and specialized storage facilities designed for handling diverse types of merchandise from across the known world. The Median government implemented comprehensive policies that protected merchant activities while extracting substantial revenues through taxation and licensing procedures that funded continued administrative expansion and infrastructure development. The development of luxury craft industries during this prosperous period reflected both the increased availability of raw materials from conquered territories and the growing demand for high-quality goods among Median nobility and wealthy merchants who competed in displays of wealth and sophistication. Specialized workshops produced exquisite metalwork, luxurious textiles, precious jewelry, and decorative objects that displayed sophisticated artistic techniques and cultural influences from throughout the ancient world. Archaeological investigations at craft production sites reveal compelling evidence of advanced metallurgical techniques, complex textile manufacturing processes, and artistic traditions that skillfully combine traditional Iranian cultural motifs with design elements borrowed from Assyrian, Babylonian, and Anatolian sources. The systematic standardization of production techniques and quality standards clearly indicates the development of guild systems and professional training programs that maintained consistent artistic and technical standards across the kingdom. The diplomatic initiatives undertaken by Astyages established the Median Kingdom as a major player in international relations, whose alliance or opposition could significantly influence regional political developments throughout the ancient Near East. The king's magnificent court at Ekbatana became a prestigious center for diplomatic activity, where representatives from kingdoms throughout the ancient world negotiated treaties, trade agreements, and political arrangements that affected the balance of power across vast regions. Archaeological evidence from the royal palace complex includes specialized facilities for housing foreign delegations, ceremonial halls for conducting diplomatic meetings, and extensive storage areas for gifts and tribute payments that demonstrated Median wealth and power to visiting dignitaries from distant lands. These facilities represented unprecedented luxury and sophistication that impressed even representatives from the most advanced civilizations. The marriage diplomacy employed by Astyages represented a sophisticated approach to international relations that created kinship ties with ruling families throughout the region, while securing crucial political alliances through personal relationships that transcended traditional tribal loyalties. The king's daughter Mandain was married to Cambyses, a Persian nobleman whose influential family controlled substantial territories in the Fars region of the Iranian plateau. This marriage alliance served multiple strategic purposes, strengthening Median control over Persian territories while creating succession possibilities that could potentially unite the two most powerful Iranian kingdoms under common leadership through their descendants. Archaeological evidence from the elaborate wedding celebrations includes luxury goods and architectural modifications at Ekbatana that accommodated the elaborate ceremonies required for such politically significant unions that would affect the future of Iranian civilization. The relationship between Media and Babylon evolved into a complex partnership that carefully balanced cooperation in regional affairs, with competition for influence over shared border territories that both kingdoms considered strategically important. Astyages maintained diplomatic relations with Babylonian rulers through regular exchanges of ambassadors, comprehensive commercial agreements, and mutual defense consultations that addressed common security concerns affecting both kingdoms. The two kingdoms collaborated effectively in managing the division of former Assyrian territories, while carefully avoiding conflicts that could destabilize the regional balance of power and potentially benefit their enemies. Archaeological evidence from border regions includes joint administrative installations and shared defensive works that demonstrate the practical cooperation achieved, despite underlying political tensions that occasionally surfaced during territorial disputes. The alliance with Lydia developed into a comprehensive partnership that encompassed military cooperation, commercial agreements, and cultural exchange programs that benefited both kingdoms through shared prosperity and mutual security. The establishment of the Halys River boundary had permanently eliminated territorial disputes while creating opportunities for peaceful interaction and mutual development that enhanced both civilizations. Lydian and Median merchants established joint trading ventures that exploited the complementary resources and geographical advantages of both kingdoms, creating wealth that supported continued cultural and technological development. Archaeological evidence includes examples of Lydian coins found at Median sites and Median craft goods discovered in Lydian territories, clearly indicating extensive commercial relationships that transcended political boundaries and created lasting bonds between the two peoples. The cultural achievements of Astyages' reign reflected the cosmopolitan character of Median society that had successfully absorbed influences from throughout the ancient world while maintaining distinctly Iranian characteristics that preserved their unique identity. The royal court at Ekbatana attracted scholars, artists, craftsmen, and religious teachers from diverse cultural backgrounds who contributed to an unprecedented flowering of intellectual and artistic activity that would influence Persian imperial culture for centuries. What if everything you thought you knew about ancient empires was wrong? Deep beneath the sands of modern-day Iran lies evidence of a forgotten kingdom so advanced, so mysteriously powerful, that it would make today's governments look primitive. This isn't some fantasy tale Minius. Archaeologists have uncovered proof of a civilization that mastered fire worship, predicted eclipses with stunning accuracy, and built governmental systems so sophisticated they influenced every major empire that followed. But here's the shocking part. This empire vanished almost overnight, destroyed not by foreign armies but by the very people they had elevated to greatness. Welcome to the untold story of the Median Empire Minius, where priests wielded more power than kings, where fire temples served as ancient universities, and where a single strategic mistake would reshape the entire ancient world forever. The spiritual landscape of Median civilization reveals something extraordinary that archaeologists are only now beginning to understand. Far from being simple fire worshippers, these ancient Iranians had developed one of the most intellectually sophisticated belief systems the world had ever seen. Their religious authorities, known as the Magi, weren't just ceremonial figures performing rituals. They were the ancient equivalent of university professors, Supreme Court justices, and presidential advisors, all rolled into one incredibly influential class. Archaeological discoveries across former Median territories have revealed fire altars built to exact specifications, suggesting a standardized religious practice that spanned thousands of miles. But these weren't crude stone circles around campfires. These structures demonstrate engineering knowledge that rivals modern construction techniques. Each altar was positioned with mathematical precision, designed to accommodate massive gatherings of people from wildly different cultural backgrounds who had somehow been unified under Median spiritual authority. The fire temples themselves tell an even more fascinating story. Recent excavations have uncovered architectural marvels that served multiple purposes simultaneously. These weren't just places of worship, they functioned as libraries, schools, administrative centers, and technological laboratories. The sacred fires that burned perpetually within these temples required sophisticated ventilation systems that maintained optimal oxygen levels while preventing smoke buildup. Engineers today marvel at how these ancient architects solved complex airflow problems without modern technology. Storage chambers within these temple complexes contained far more than religious artifacts. Archaeologists have discovered astronomical instruments, legal documents, scientific observations, and educational materials that paint a picture of intellectual achievement that wouldn't be matched again for centuries. The Magi priests maintained vast libraries containing knowledge that spanned everything from medicine and mathematics to law and engineering. What makes this even more remarkable is how these religious leaders seamlessly integrated spiritual authority with practical governance. The Magi served as trusted advisors to Median kings, but their influence extended far beyond giving religious counsel. They interpreted laws, resolved complex legal disputes, provided scientific expertise for agricultural planning, and even conducted diplomatic negotiations with foreign powers. Their ability to predict celestial events like eclipses and seasonal changes gave them enormous prestige while providing genuine practical benefits to farmers and administrators. The ethical framework developed during this period reveals another layer of sophistication that would profoundly influence later civilizations. Median religious philosophy emphasized the cosmic struggle between truth and deception, light and darkness, moral behavior and corruption. These weren't abstract theological concepts. They formed the foundation for legal codes and administrative procedures that governed daily life throughout the empire. The integration of moral principles with governmental authority created administrative systems that emphasized justice and fairness, while maintaining the centralized control necessary to manage incredibly diverse populations. Legal innovations developed during the Median period combined traditional Iranian concepts of justice with administrative techniques borrowed from Mesopotamian civilizations. The resulting legal framework provided comprehensive guidelines for resolving disputes, punishing criminal behavior, and regulating commercial activities. But unlike rigid law codes that applied uniformly regardless of circumstances, Median legal systems maintained flexibility to accommodate local customs and unique situations. Archaeological evidence from court facilities reveals standardized legal procedures implemented consistently across vast territories, demonstrating organizational capabilities that wouldn't be seen again until the Roman Empire. Military organization during this peaceful period focused on maintaining professional readiness without the enormous expenses associated with active campaigns. Median forces included specialized units trained in cavalry operations, archery, siege warfare, and defensive tactics. Archaeological evidence from military installations shows continued weapons development and training facilities designed to maintain combat effectiveness during extended periods of peace. Logistical systems were designed to support rapid mobilization if external threats emerged, but the emphasis remained on deterrence rather than conquest. However, this very success contained the seeds of eventual downfall. The prosperity and cultural achievements of Median civilization created conditions for political overconfidence that would prove catastrophic. Royal authorities became increasingly isolated from practical realities faced by populations throughout their territories. The wealth and luxury of court life created distance between rulers and subjects that undermined the personal connections essential for maintaining loyalty across diverse populations. The complex administrative machinery required to govern such an extensive empire demanded constant attention to maintain effectiveness. As Median rulers became more confident in their administrative systems and military superiority, they paid less attention to potential challenges from subject populations and allied kingdoms. This administrative complacency during the later years created mounting tensions between Median overlords and their Persian vassals in distant provinces. The Persians, who had initially benefited enormously from incorporation into the Median kingdom, gradually developed autonomous capabilities that reduced their dependence on Median administrative support. Access to international trade networks, advanced agricultural techniques, and sophisticated production methods had enhanced Persian economic development significantly. However, these same advantages provided Persians with the resources and expertise necessary to challenge Median authority when tribute obligations became increasingly burdensome. Cyrus II emerged from this context as a leader uniquely positioned to unite Persian resistance against Median rule. His family connections linked him to both Persian royal lineages and Median nobility through strategic marriages, creating legitimacy within Persian society, while providing intimate knowledge of Median governmental systems. Archaeological evidence from Pasargadae shows extensive construction activity beginning in the mid-6th century BC, indicating substantial resources and organized labor under Persian control that would soon challenge the empire that had created the conditions for its own destruction. The most dangerous moment for any ruler comes not during obvious crises, but in those quiet periods when everything seems perfectly under control. Astyages, the mighty Median king, had fallen into this exact trap. His empire appeared unshakable, his armies invincible, his administrative machine flawlessly efficient. Yet beneath this surface of absolute authority, seismic shifts were occurring that would shatter everything he believed about power, loyalty, and empire. The Persian military transformation represented something unprecedented in ancient warfare. While Median commanders remained confident in their traditional superiority, Persian forces had quietly evolved into something entirely different. They had studied every Median tactical innovation, absorbed every lesson from Median military doctrine, then systematically improved upon each technique. Archaeological discoveries across vast province reveal weapon foundries producing arms that not only matched Median technical standards, but incorporated refinements that reflected uniquely Persian strategic thinking. Persian cavalry units had achieved something remarkable through methodical horse breeding programs. Their mounts now surpassed those available to most Median forces, providing crucial advantages in speed, endurance, and battlefield maneuverability. But technical superiority alone doesn't explain what made Persian forces so formidable. They had successfully merged the discipline and tactical sophistication of professional armies with the fierce motivation and adaptability of tribal warriors. This combination created fighting forces that possessed both the organizational capabilities of imperial armies and the personal dedication of men defending their homeland. The mountainous terrain of the Iranian plateau became Persian forces' greatest ally. While Median armies had grown accustomed to fighting in open territories where their numerical advantages and conventional tactics proved decisive, Persian units had developed specialized techniques perfectly suited to rocky highlands and narrow passes. Every valley, every ridge, every stream crossing became a potential advantage for defenders who knew the landscape intimately. Meanwhile, Cyrus II had been conducting a diplomatic revolution that would prove as important as his military preparations. He had quietly established communication channels with Babylonian rulers, who recognized that Persian independence would weaken Median power while potentially providing them with a valuable ally against common enemies. Eastern nomadic tribes, who had maintained precarious semi-autonomous status under Median rule, received carefully crafted messages suggesting that Persian success might lead to greater freedom for all who had grown weary of Median domination. Archaeological evidence from border regions tells the story of this diplomatic campaign through Persian gifts and administrative documents that demonstrate the scope of these preparatory activities. Cyrus understood that military victory alone wouldn't guarantee lasting independence. He needed to ensure that Median forces would face not just Persian resistance, but a broader coalition of groups eager to see Median authority challenged. The cultural dimensions of Persian resistance proved equally significant. Under Median rule, distinctly Persian traditions had been gradually suppressed in favor of standardized imperial practices. Now Persian nobility began deliberately promoting cultural elements that emphasized their separate identity and legitimate claims to independent political authority. Religious sites across Persian territories show evidence of new ceremonial installations and modifications to existing facilities that accommodated specifically Persian ritual requirements, creating visible symbols of cultural autonomy that would inspire resistance efforts. Economic independence provided the foundation that made everything else possible. Persian merchants had systematically established direct trading relationships throughout the ancient world, bypassing Median intermediaries and retaining profits that had previously flowed to imperial administrators. Persian craft industries had achieved technical standards enabling direct competition with Median producers, while developing distinctive artistic styles that appealed to international markets. Archaeological investigations reveal extensive trading activities and sophisticated production facilities that supported complete economic autonomy, the essential prerequisite for political independence. When Cyrus II formally renounced Persian allegiance to Median authority in 553 BC, he wasn't making a desperate gamble. He was announcing the culmination of years of methodical preparation that had transformed Persian territories from dependent provinces into a fully autonomous power capable of challenging the greatest empire in the known world. The morning sun rose over Pasargadae on a day that would determine whether the greatest empire in the ancient world would survive or crumble into dust. The year was 550 BC, and two massive armies faced each other across a battlefield that would become legendary. On one side stood Astyages, the mighty Median king, personally leading his forces in what he believed would be the final crushing blow against Persian rebellion. On the other side waited Cyrus II, the Persian upstart who had dared challenge an empire that dominated the known world for generations. Neither commander could have imagined that by sunset, the entire balance of ancient power would shift forever. Archaeological excavations across the Pasargadae battlefield reveal the staggering scale of preparations both sides had undertaken for this climactic confrontation. Weapon fragments, armor pieces, and defensive installations scattered across the terrain tell the story of armies that had spared no expense in preparing for decisive combat. The Median forces represented the culmination of imperial military development, professional soldiers equipped with standardized weapons, supported by sophisticated logistics, and organized according to tactical doctrines refined through decades of successful campaigns. The deployment of forces around Pasargadae reflected the military genius both commanders had developed through years of warfare. Median formations followed traditional combined arms arrangements that had proven successful in countless previous battles. Infantry units formed the backbone of their battle lines, with heavily armored spearmen providing defensive stability, while archers delivered devastating volleys against enemy formations. Cavalry wings positioned on both flanks prepared to exploit breakthrough opportunities and pursue retreating enemies. The coordination required for such complex tactical arrangements demonstrated the professional excellence Median armies had achieved through systematic training and combat experience. Cyrus II faced the challenge of defending his capital against overwhelming numerical superiority, with tactical innovations that maximized every possible advantage. Persian defensive positions utilized the natural terrain features surrounding Pasargadae to create killing zones where median numerical advantages would become liabilities rather than strengths. Rocky outcroppings provided cover for Persian archers, while narrow approaches channeled median attacks into predetermined engagement areas where defenders could concentrate their firepower effectively. The Persian strategy relied heavily on mobility and intimate knowledge of local geography. Rather than meeting median forces in traditional static defensive positions, Persian units maintained flexibility to redeploy rapidly as battlefield conditions changed. This tactical approach required extraordinary coordination among commanders who needed to respond instantly to developing threats while maintaining overall defensive coherence. Archaeological evidence suggests Persian forces had prepared multiple fallback positions and alternative deployment areas that enabled dynamic responses to Median tactical initiatives. When the battle commenced, Median forces launched coordinated assaults designed to overwhelm Persian defenses through sheer weight of numbers and professional execution. Traditional siege warfare techniques combined with cavalry operations attempted to isolate Persian strongpoints while preventing coordinated resistance efforts. Median engineers had prepared specialized equipment for breaching Persian fortifications, while cavalry units moved to cut off escape routes and supply lines that might enable continued Persian resistance. The initial phases of engagement revealed the effectiveness of both sides' preparations. Median attacks achieved tactical penetrations that seemed to promise quick victory, but Persian counterattacks exploited terrain advantages and superior mobility to avoid decisive defeat. The fighting intensity amazed even experienced warriors on both sides as professional armies clashed with unprecedented ferocity. Weapon fragments recovered from the battlefield showed damage patterns indicating prolonged close-quarters combat that tested the limits of both armies' endurance and tactical capabilities. As the battle progressed through its middle phases, the superior training and equipment of Median forces began creating cumulative advantages that threatened to overwhelm Persian resistance. However, Persian tactical innovations developed specifically for this type of engagement started proving their worth. Persian commanders had anticipated Median tactical approaches and prepared responses that neutralized many traditional advantages enjoyed by imperial armies. The ability to coordinate complex maneuvers while maintaining defensive integrity demonstrated the remarkable military development Persian forces had achieved through years of preparation. The dramatic turning point occurred during the final phases, when Persian tactical flexibility proved decisive against Median conventional approaches. While specific details remain unclear from archaeological evidence, the collapse of Median resistance appears to have resulted from Persian exploitation of tactical opportunities created by the prolonged engagement. The capture of Astyages during these final moments marked the end of Median resistance and established Persian victory beyond question. The circumstances surrounding the Median king's capture became legendary throughout the ancient world. Rather than dying heroically in combat, Astyages found himself taken prisoner as his army disintegrated around him. The psychological impact on remaining Median forces was immediate and catastrophic. Professional soldiers who had never known defeat suddenly faced the reality that their invincible empire had been shattered by the very people they had considered subordinate vassals. Cyrus II's treatment of his captured enemy revealed political sophistication that would characterize his entire imperial career. Instead of executing Astyages or subjecting him to public humiliation, the Persian victor demonstrated respect for the defeated ruler while making clear that political authority had permanently shifted. This calculated magnanimity served multiple purposes. It reassured former Median subjects that Persian rule wouldn't involve vindictive persecution, while establishing Cyrus as a legitimate successor rather than merely a successful rebel. The integration of Median nobility into Persian governmental systems represented one of history's most successful political transitions. Rather than implementing wholesale purges that would have eliminated valuable administrative expertise, Cyrus adopted policies that preserved Median leadership while ensuring Persian control. Many former Median officials retained positions within the evolving governmental hierarchy, though under Persian supervision and with responsibilities modified to reflect new political realities. Archaeological evidence from administrative centers throughout former Median territories shows remarkable continuity in record-keeping practices and governmental procedures. The preservation of existing bureaucratic systems under Persian authority enabled smooth transitions that maintained essential services while establishing new political structures. This pragmatic approach prevented the administrative chaos that typically followed imperial conquests and created foundations for stable expansion. Military integration proved equally successful as Persian commanders recognized the value of Median combat experience and technological capabilities. Former Median military units were reorganized under Persian leadership and integrated with Persian forces to create unified armies that combined the best elements of both military traditions. The resulting military organization possessed tactical capabilities that would prove essential for subsequent imperial expansion across 3 continents. The administrative reorganization required sophisticated innovations that could manage complex transitions while maintaining social and economic stability. Persian governmental reforms preserved effective Median practices, while establishing clear political control and eliminating resistance sources. Provincial organization developed under Median rule continued functioning, though with Persian governors and administrative personnel in key positions throughout the hierarchy. This transformation from independent Median rule to Persian imperial administration occurred with remarkable smoothness, largely due to policies that preserved effective institutions while ensuring ultimate political control remained in Persian hands. The Battle of Pasargadae had done more than decide a rebellion. It had created the foundations for the greatest empire the ancient world would ever see. The most remarkable transformation in ancient history wasn't just the fall of one empire and rise of another, it was how quickly former enemies became the backbone of something far greater than either had achieved alone. Within a single generation, Median nobles who had once ruled an independent kingdom found themselves commanding Persian armies across 3 continents, governing vast territories and helping build the largest empire the world had ever seen. This wasn't conquest in the traditional sense. It was the birth of a revolutionary new model of imperial governance that would influence every major empire that followed. The Persian satrap system represented a governmental innovation so sophisticated that its basic principles remained virtually unchanged for over 2 centuries. Rather than destroying existing administrative structures, Cyrus II and his successors created a framework that preserved local expertise while ensuring ultimate imperial control. The former Median kingdom was reorganized into several satrapies, with the most significant centered around Ecbatana, the traditional heartland of Median power. This wasn't merely administrative convenience, it was calculated political genius that transformed potential resistance into enthusiastic collaboration. Persian appointments of Median nobles as satraps reflected both practical necessity and brilliant strategic thinking. These officials possessed irreplaceable cultural knowledge and administrative experience essential for effective governance, but their elevated positions within the imperial hierarchy created powerful incentives for loyalty to Persian authority. Former enemies became invested partners in imperial success, with personal fortunes directly tied to Persian expansion and prosperity. Ecbatana itself exemplifies this transformation perfectly. Rather than becoming a conquered provincial town, it retained status as a major administrative center, whose role evolved from independent kingdom capital to crucial regional headquarters within the broader Persian imperial network. The city's strategic location at the intersection of major trade routes connecting Mesopotamia with Central Asia made it an ideal coordination point for administrative activities across northwestern Persian territories. Archaeological investigations at modern Hamadan reveal extensive construction projects undertaken during the early Persian period that dramatically expanded the city's administrative capacity, while preserving the basic urban layout established during Median rule. Persian kings recognized Ecbatana's symbolic importance as the former seat of Median power and deliberately maintained its status as a royal residence where the Persian court spent portions of each year. This practice served multiple brilliant purposes, demonstrating Persian respect for Median traditions while providing opportunities for direct royal supervision of northwestern territories. The seasonal residence pattern enabled Persian kings to maintain personal relationships with Median nobility and monitor potential sources of unrest, while benefiting from the cooler climate of the Zagros Mountains during scorching summer months. Architectural modifications undertaken at Ecbatana during the Persian period reflected the successful integration of Persian royal ceremonial requirements with existing Median palatial traditions. Persian builders expanded royal residential complexes while preserving distinctive architectural features that had characterized Median royal architecture for centuries. Archaeological evidence reveals construction of new audience halls designed to accommodate Persian court ceremonies, expanded residential quarters for Persian officials and their households, and improved defensive installations reflecting Persian military engineering techniques. The resulting architectural complex combined Persian imperial grandeur with Median regional characteristics in ways that symbolized the successful fusion of both traditions into something greater than either had achieved independently. Median participation in Persian military campaigns represented one of the most visible aspects of their integration into imperial service. Median cavalry units and military commanders played crucial roles in Persian expansion throughout the ancient world, with military expertise developed during centuries of warfare in the Zagros Mountains, proving particularly valuable for Persian operations in mountainous regions, where traditional Persian tactics required significant modifications to suit local terrain conditions. Median military units retained distinctive equipment and tactical preferences while operating under Persian command structures that coordinated their activities with other imperial forces. The Persian military organization systematically incorporated Median cavalry units into imperial armies, where their superior horsemanship and archery skills enhanced overall military capabilities dramatically. Median horsemen had developed specialized techniques for mountain warfare that proved highly effective in Persian campaigns against Greek city-states, Scythian nomads, and other opponents who operated in difficult terrain. Archaeological evidence from Persian military installations includes examples of Median military equipment and horse gear that demonstrate the continued importance of Median cavalry traditions within imperial military organization. Median commanders achieved prominent positions within Persian military hierarchies through demonstrated competence and loyalty to imperial objectives. These officers brought valuable experience from previous conflicts, while adapting their leadership skills to requirements of large-scale imperial campaigns involving diverse military units from throughout Persian domains. The integration of Median military leadership into Persian command structures created more effective armies, while providing career opportunities that encouraged continued Median participation in imperial service. This system proved its worth during the greatest test of Median loyalty met at the Greco-Persian Wars, where former enemies of Persian expansion were called upon to participate in campaigns against Greek opponents who represented similar cultural and political traditions. The Battle of Marathon in 490 BC involved substantial Median cavalry forces operating alongside Persian infantry and other imperial units in the unsuccessful attempt to establish Persian control over Attica. Median horsemen employed traditional tactics that had proven effective in previous campaigns, but the unique tactical challenges presented by Greek hoplite formations required adaptations that proved difficult to implement during the heat of battle. Archaeological evidence from the Marathon battlefield includes Median arrowheads and horse equipment, demonstrating their active engagement in the fighting. The massive Persian expedition led by Xerxes in 479 BC included even larger numbers of Median military units participating in both naval and land components of the campaign. Median forces were present at the Battle of Thermopylae, where their mountain warfare expertise proved valuable in the flanking maneuver that ultimately overcame Spartan resistance. Archaeological investigations in the Thermopylae region have uncovered Median weapons and equipment, confirming their participation in this legendary engagement. While Medians were not traditionally a maritime people, their administrative expertise proved crucial for coordinating complex supply operations necessary to support the largest military expedition in ancient history. Median administrators managed supply depots, coordinated transportation systems, and maintained communication networks that enabled Persian forces to operate effectively across vast distances while maintaining logistical support for both naval and land operations. The Battle of Plataea in 479 BC marked the final major engagement of the Greco-Persian Wars and involved substantial Median military participation in the Persian attempt to maintain control over central Greece. Median cavalry units operated alongside Persian and other imperial forces in complex tactical maneuvers that reflected the sophisticated military coordination achieved by Persian commanders through decades of integrated operations. What emerged from this transformation was something unprecedented in ancient history. An empire that grew stronger through conquest rather than weaker, that turned former enemies into enthusiastic partners, and that created governmental systems sophisticated enough to manage unprecedented diversity across vast territories. The Median integration into Persian imperial service wasn't just successful politics, it was the foundation upon which the greatest empire in ancient history was built. Even the most successful partnerships can shatter under pressure, and the golden age of Median-Persian cooperation would face its ultimate test during one of the most turbulent periods in ancient history. The reign of Artaxerxes witnessed something that shocked the Persian court to its core, might of the first serious Median revolt against Persian authority since the original conquest over a century earlier. This wasn't just political rebellion, it was the explosion of tensions that had been building beneath the surface of apparent harmony for generations. Archaeological evidence suggests this uprising centered in the traditional Median heartland around Ecbatana, where descendants of pre-conquest royal families attempted to restore independent Median rule. The rebellion represented far more than simple political ambition. It emerged from a complex web of economic grievances, cultural tensions, and accumulated resentments that had festered during decades of imperial integration. Economic factors driving Median unrest included dramatically increased tribute obligations imposed to fund Persian military campaigns and administrative expansion. Communities that had once controlled profitable trade routes connecting Mesopotamia with Central Asia found their access restricted while their financial burdens multiplied. Archaeological evidence from Median territories during this period reveals unmistakable signs of economic stress, reduced construction activity, simplified material culture, and evidence of population movement suggesting deteriorating living conditions. The cultural dimensions of Median resistance proved equally significant. While Median and Persian religious practices shared common Iranian roots, Median traditions had developed unique characteristics, emphasizing different aspects of traditional beliefs and ceremonial requirements. Under Persian rule, these distinctive cultural elements had been gradually suppressed or modified to conform with imperial standards. The preservation and promotion of specifically Median cultural practices became powerful symbols of resistance to imperial homogenization, providing rallying points for opposition to Persian authority. The Persian response to these challenges revealed the sophistication of imperial crisis management. Rather than relying solely on military suppression, Persian administrators implemented both force and diplomatic strategies designed to isolate rebel leaders while offering amnesty to their followers. This approach created divisions within Median resistance movements that facilitated their ultimate suppression while addressing legitimate grievances that had motivated the original uprising. Archaeological evidence from sites associated with these conflicts reveals the intensity of fighting and sophisticated military techniques employed by both sides during suppression campaigns. The military resources required for these operations demonstrated the continued importance of maintaining adequate garrison forces throughout the empire to deal with internal security challenges that could threaten imperial stability. Administrative reforms implemented following the suppression of Median revolts involved significant modifications to the satrap system that provided greater autonomy for local administration while maintaining effective imperial supervision. The Persian authorities recognized that excessive centralization had contributed to Median unrest and implemented policies preserving local customs and administrative practices while ensuring continued loyalty to imperial authority. These reforms created more flexible governmental systems accommodating regional variations while maintaining essential unity necessary for effective imperial administration. The balance between local autonomy and central control established during this period would influence imperial governance throughout the remaining years of Persian rule. Subsequent episodes of Median unrest during the later Persian period never achieved the scale or intensity of the major revolt during Artaxerxes' reign. These smaller rebellions typically involved local grievances related to specific administrative policies or economic conditions, rather than systematic attempts to restore Median independence. The Persian response evolved into rapid military intervention combined with administrative adjustments designed to address underlying causes of discontent while deterring future resistance. The ultimate test of Median loyalty came during the reign of Darius III, when Macedonian invasion led by Alexander the Great threatened to destroy Persian imperial authority entirely. The initial Median response to Alexander's invasion was complicated by their deep integration into Persian imperial systems and their obligations to support Persian resistance against foreign conquest. However, as Persian military defeats accumulated and imperial authority collapsed, Median communities began considering their options for the post-imperial period. The Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC represented the final major engagement between Persian imperial forces and Alexander's Macedonian army, with substantial Median military participation in the desperate Persian attempt to halt Macedonian expansion. Median cavalry units operated alongside Persian forces in complex tactical formations, reflecting decades of military cooperation and shared strategic planning. Archaeological evidence from the battlefield includes numerous examples of Median military equipment, demonstrating their continued integration into Persian military organization even during the final phases of imperial collapse. The collapse of Persian resistance following Gaugamela created immediate challenges for Median communities regarding their relationship with victorious Macedonian forces and their plans for post-imperial political organization. Alexander's conquest of the Persian Empire in 331 BC marked the end of nearly 2 centuries of Median integration into imperial systems. Yet the cultural and administrative foundations established during the Median period would prove remarkably durable. The administrative innovations developed during the Median period provided crucial foundations for Persian imperial governance that would be adopted and adapted by subsequent rulers throughout Iranian history. The satrap system, which evolved from Median provincial administration, demonstrated the effectiveness of decentralized governance combined with centralized oversight for managing diverse populations across vast territories. Archaeological evidence from administrative centers throughout the former Persian Empire reveals the persistence of record-keeping practices, taxation procedures, and judicial systems that originated during the Median period and continued influencing governmental operations long after the collapse of Achaemenid authority. These administrative innovations would resurface in later Iranian dynasties, demonstrating the enduring value of governmental systems originally developed by Median administrators. The Median contribution to Persian military organization extended far beyond simple integration of cavalry units into imperial armies. Combined arms tactics developed during Median military reforms became standard practice throughout Persian military organization, with coordinated operations involving infantry, cavalry, and archer units forming the tactical foundation for Persian imperial expansion. Siege warfare techniques perfected during Median campaigns against Assyrian fortifications provided Persian commanders with capabilities necessary for conquering fortified cities throughout their territorial expansion. Median expertise in mountain warfare proved invaluable for operations in diverse terrain conditions encountered across the Persian Empire, while standardization of weapons production and military equipment that began during Median unification established manufacturing standards and quality control procedures influencing military technology throughout the ancient Iranian world. Archaeological investigations at weapons production sites reveal the persistence of metallurgical techniques and design specifications that originated during Median military development and continued influencing Iranian arms manufacturing for centuries after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire. The technological innovations, administrative systems, and military doctrines developed through Median-Persian cooperation created lasting foundations that would influence Iranian civilization for over a millennium. The story of Median integration into Persian imperial service represents one of history's most successful examples of transforming conquest into partnership, rebellion into collaboration, and separate peoples into unified empire. Though the Achaemenid Empire eventually fell to Macedonian conquest, the governmental innovations, military techniques, and cultural synthesis achieved through Median-Persian cooperation would continue shaping Iranian civilization long after the last Persian king had fallen and the last Median satrap had surrendered his authority to foreign conquerors. The true measure of any civilization isn't found in its monuments or conquests, but in how deeply its innovations become woven into the fabric of human progress. Long after the last Median king had been forgotten and their empire had dissolved into historical footnotes, the technological breakthroughs, governmental systems, and cultural achievements of this remarkable civilization continued shaping the ancient world in ways that would astonish even their creators. The superior quality of Iranian metalwork, particularly in sword production, spear points, and archery equipment, became legendary throughout the ancient world and directly reflected technical innovations achieved during the Median period. Master craftsmen working in Median workshops had developed metallurgical techniques that produced weapons of unmatched quality, mightier blades that held edges longer, points that penetrated armor more effectively, and arrows that flew straighter than anything available from competing civilizations. Archaeological analysis of Median weapons reveals sophisticated alloying techniques and heat treatment processes that wouldn't be matched by other cultures for centuries. These technological advantages weren't merely academic achievements, they provided tangible military superiority that helped Persian armies conquer territories spanning from India to Greece. The standardization of weapons production that began during Median unification established manufacturing standards and quality control procedures that influenced military technology throughout the ancient Iranian world. Archaeological investigations at weapons production sites reveal the persistence of metallurgical techniques and design specifications that originated during Median military development and continued influencing Iranian arms manufacturing long after political authority had shifted to other powers. The diplomatic protocols and ceremonial practices developed at the Median court in Ecbatana provided foundational models for Persian imperial court culture that emphasized the elevated status of royal authority while maintaining accessibility for subject populations and foreign delegations. These weren't merely decorative traditions, they represented sophisticated systems for managing relationships with diverse cultural groups while projecting imperial power effectively. The Median court's attraction of scholars, artists, and craftsmen from throughout the ancient world established patterns of cultural exchange that Persian emperors would expand and systematize on an unprecedented scale. Architectural innovations implemented during Median palace construction created distinctive features that became characteristic elements of Persian imperial architecture. Columned halls, elevated platforms, and elaborate decorative schemes developed by Median architects influenced building practices throughout the Persian Empire and beyond. Archaeological evidence from Persian royal centers reveals the direct adoption of Median architectural elements combined with Persian innovations to create imperial architectural styles that symbolized Persian power while acknowledging their Median heritage. These architectural traditions proved remarkably durable, influencing construction techniques across the ancient world for centuries after the fall of both Median and Persian political authority. The integration of diverse cultural traditions that characterized Median society created precedents for the cosmopolitan character of Persian imperial culture that would become one of the distinguishing features of Achaemenid civilization. The religious synthesis achieved during the Median period provided perhaps their most enduring contribution to world civilization. Traditional Iranian fire worship combined with administrative and legal principles derived from Mesopotamian sources created the foundation for Zoroastrianism's development as the dominant religious system of the Persian Empire. The emphasis on truthfulness, moral behavior, and fundamental opposition between good and evil that characterized Median religious teachings became central elements of Zoroastrian theology that influenced Persian imperial ideology and legal systems. Archaeological evidence from fire temples throughout the former Persian Empire shows persistent architectural designs and ritual practices that originated during the Median period and continued influencing Iranian religious architecture throughout subsequent historical periods. These religious innovations would eventually influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, making Median spiritual developments among the most historically significant achievements in human religious evolution. Archaeological discoveries from the 20th and 21st centuries have dramatically enhanced our understanding of Median civilization and its contributions to ancient Iranian culture. Excavations at Tepe Nushaijan have revealed sophisticated architectural and religious practices of Median communities, including fire temples with advanced ventilation systems and ceremonial installations, demonstrating the complexity of Median religious architecture. The site's stratified deposits provide crucial evidence for Median material culture development, from early settlement periods through Persian conquest, revealing gradual evolution of pottery styles, metalworking techniques, and architectural innovations that characterized Median cultural development. These archaeological discoveries have transformed scholarly understanding of Median capabilities and achievements. Ongoing excavations at Hamadan, the site of ancient Ecbatana, continue providing new insights into Median urban planning and administrative organization. Recent discoveries include substantial stone foundations confirming the existence of major fortification systems described in ancient sources. The urban layout revealed through systematic surveys demonstrates sophisticated planning that created functional administrative, residential, and commercial districts, while maintaining defensive capabilities. Water management systems, including channels, reservoirs, and distribution networks, reveal engineering expertise that enabled large urban populations to thrive in the semi-arid environment of the Hamadan Plain. These discoveries demonstrate technological capabilities that rivaled contemporary civilizations while providing sustainable solutions to environmental challenges. Archaeological investigations at Godin Tepe have provided crucial evidence for early phases of Iranian settlement in the Zagros Mountains and gradual development of cultural traditions that would characterize Median civilization. The site's long sequence of occupation levels documents transitions from nomadic to sedentary lifestyles, development of specialized craft production, and emergence of social stratification that preceded Median political confederation formation. Recent excavations throughout Median territory have revealed the extent of their settlement patterns and sophistication of agricultural and pastoral systems. Irrigation works, terraced fields, and seasonal campsites demonstrate integrated land use strategies that maximize productivity while maintaining environmental sustainability. The discovery of numerous small fortified sites indicates defensive preparations undertaken by Median communities during periods of external threat, while standardization of architectural features reveals political integration achieved under centralized authority. The application of modern analytical techniques to Median archaeological materials has provided revolutionary insights into ancient Iranian technological capabilities and cultural practices. Metallurgical analysis reveals sophisticated alloying techniques and heat treatment processes producing superior quality implements. Ceramic analysis demonstrates specialized pottery production centers and standardization of vessel forms that facilitated trade and administrative activities. Paleobotanical and zooarchaeological studies have revealed agricultural and pastoral practices supporting Median communities and environmental adaptations, enabling successful settlement in challenging mountain environments. The preservation of Iranian cultural identity through subsequent periods of foreign domination owed much to institutional and cultural foundations established during the Median period. Administrative systems, religious practices, and cultural traditions developed under Median rule provided frameworks for maintaining Iranian identity while adapting to changing political circumstances. The emphasis on truthfulness, justice, and moral behavior that characterized Median legal and religious systems became enduring elements of Iranian culture, persisting through periods of Greek, Parthian, and Sasanian rule. The influence of Median governmental innovations extended beyond the Iranian plateau to affect administrative practices throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean world. The satrap system developed from Median provincial administration became a model for decentralized imperial governance adopted by Alexander's successors and influenced Roman provincial administration. The integration of diverse populations under unified political authority while preserving local customs demonstrated practical advantages of flexible governmental systems that subsequent empires would attempt to replicate throughout ancient history. The greatest tragedy in studying ancient civilizations isn't just that so much has been lost to time, it's that what survives often comes filtered through the eyes of their enemies, their conquerors or historians writing centuries after the fact. The story of Median civilization presents one of archaeology's most fascinating puzzles, where brilliant detective work must separate historical reality from literary imagination, where material evidence must speak for a people whose own voices have been largely silenced by the passage of millennia. The challenge begins with our primary sources. Most of what we know about Median civilization comes from later Greek and Persian accounts, particularly Herodotus' famous histories, written long after the Median Empire had fallen. While Herodotus provides invaluable information about Median origins and political development, modern scholars face the daunting task of distinguishing genuine historical facts from literary constructions and cultural interpretations that may reflect Greek assumptions rather than Median realities. This reliance on external sources creates fundamental difficulties in understanding how the Medians actually viewed themselves, their achievements, and their place in the ancient world. Greek historians writing for Greek audiences naturally emphasized aspects of Median civilization that seemed relevant to Greek concerns, while potentially overlooking or misunderstanding elements that were crucial to Median identity but foreign to Greek experience. The archaeological record, while providing invaluable material evidence for Median civilization, presents its own unique challenges. Unlike textual sources that can pinpoint specific dates and events, material remains often lack the chronological precision necessary for correlating archaeological discoveries with particular historical occurrences described in literary sources. A pottery sherd or weapon fragment might provide crucial evidence about technological capabilities, but connecting it to the reign of a specific king or the outcome of a particular battle requires sophisticated analytical techniques that weren't available to earlier generations of archaeologists. The problem becomes particularly acute when examining early phases of Median development, where archaeological evidence provides the primary basis for historical reconstruction. The gradual nature of cultural and political evolution revealed through stratigraphic excavation contrasts dramatically with the sudden political transformations and decisive battles emphasized in ancient literary narratives. Archaeological evidence suggests that Median civilization developed through centuries of gradual change, technological innovation, and cultural adaptation, while historical accounts focus on dramatic moments of conquest and political upheaval. Modern scholars must navigate these challenges by carefully balancing insights provided by material evidence with information preserved in ancient texts, while acknowledging the limitations and potential biases inherent in both types of sources. Archaeological evidence excels at revealing long-term cultural processes, technological development, and environmental adaptations that operated over centuries, while textual sources provide information about specific political events, individual personalities, and ideological frameworks that may have lasted only decades. The integration of archaeological and textual evidence requires sophisticated methodological approaches that can account for the fundamentally different types of information provided by material remains and literary sources. Success depends on recognizing what each type of evidence can and cannot reliably tell us about ancient civilizations, then developing interpretive frameworks that maximize the strengths of both while minimizing their respective weaknesses. Recent advances in archaeological methodology continue revolutionizing our understanding of Median civilization and its historical significance. Improved dating techniques, including radiocarbon analysis and other scientific methods, provide increasingly precise chronological frameworks for correlating archaeological deposits with historical events. These technological advances enable archaeologists to create more accurate timelines that can bridge the gap between material evidence and textual accounts. Paleoenvironmental studies reveal the climatic and ecological conditions that influence Median settlement patterns and economic activities, providing crucial context for understanding why certain political and cultural developments occurred when and where they did. Climate data helps explain agricultural productivity, population movements, and resource availability that shaped Median political decisions and military strategies. Comparative analysis with contemporary cultures throughout the Iranian plateau and adjacent regions helps place Median development within broader patterns of ancient Near Eastern cultural evolution. By studying how other Iranian groups adapted to similar environmental challenges and political pressures, scholars can better understand which Median achievements represented unique innovations and which reflected widespread cultural trends. The continuing discovery of new archaeological sites promises to further enhance our understanding of Median civilization in coming decades. Systematic survey projects throughout the Zagros Mountains continue identifying previously unknown sites that provide additional evidence for Median settlement patterns and cultural practices. Each new discovery adds pieces to the complex puzzle of Median civilization while potentially challenging existing interpretations. The application of remote sensing technologies and geographic information systems enables more comprehensive analysis of site distributions and landscape use patterns that reveal environmental and strategic factors influencing Median political and economic development. Satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar can identify archaeological sites and features that would be impossible to detect through traditional survey methods. The re-examination of previously excavated materials using modern analytical techniques continues yielding new insights about Median technological capabilities, trade relationships, and cultural practices. Materials stored in museum collections for decades can now be analyzed using methods that weren't available when they were originally excavated, providing fresh perspectives on familiar evidence. The legacy of Median civilization extends far beyond its direct contributions to Persian imperial development to encompass its role in preserving and transmitting essential elements of Iranian cultural identity that influence subsequent historical periods. The synthesis of nomadic and sedentary traditions achieved during the Median period created cultural frameworks that enabled Iranian populations to maintain distinctive identities while adapting to changing political and economic circumstances. The emphasis on justice, truth, and moral behavior that characterized Median legal and religious systems became enduring features of Iranian culture that influenced political ideologies and social values throughout later Iranian history. These cultural foundations proved remarkably durable, surviving conquests by Greeks, Arabs, Mongols, and other foreign powers, while continuing to shape Iranian civilization. The Median Empire's transformation from a collection of mountain tribes into sophisticated imperial power, capable of challenging Assyrian dominance, and ultimately contributing to creation of the largest empire in ancient history, represents one of the most remarkable political developments in the ancient world. The administrative innovations, military reforms, and cultural synthesis achieved during this relatively brief period established foundations that influenced Iranian civilization development for centuries. The Median legacy reminds us that the rise and fall of ancient empires involved complex processes of cultural adaptation, technological innovation, and political creativity that continue providing valuable insights into the dynamics of historical change and the enduring influence of foundational civilizations on subsequent cultural development. Though much about Median civilization remains mysterious, ongoing archaeological research continues revealing new aspects of this remarkable people whose achievements helped shape the ancient world in ways that continue resonating today.